host, Sabrina Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati.
All right. Happy Friday, guys. Welcome. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, and Twitter. And welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sab's podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursday for the Roundtable and Friday for the Sabby Show. And you can catch me here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. I want to give quick shout outs to people in the chat. What's going on? Monarch says 83 billion student debt going towards Ukraine. Oh boy. Shout out to Hannah G, says Sabby with a smile. Greetings, Kenshi, says happy Friday, my beloved Sabby. Hello to you too. What's going on? Eric, who's a Sabby member, says hi Friday to all lefty friends. Always a pleasure to see Lawrence, who's a Sabby member, says doobie-doobie-doo, TGIF. Shout out to Eric Gray, says, hey, everybody, and the NFL draft has been interesting. I've heard. Shout out to Gamer and Ganja for Life, says hello. Greetings, Zach, says, hey, everyone. Hey, Sabby, go watch the Anti-Imperialist Summit on RBN. Yeah, well, I was just there. Shout out to Delthea, who is a Sabby member, says TGIF, everybody. What's going on, Ashura? Says Sabby Sab, saw your super chat on Kyle, the Vanguard, although they doubt over simping for Kyle, WTF. I don't know what that means, but greetings. Henry says, Sabby, just saw you on Jimmy Dore and you brought the fire. Oh, thanks so much, Henry. Thank you. I'm glad. It's good to hear I did a good job. Shout out to Notori, says, I love the new intro, hun. Thank you. Shout out to Kashev. He made that for me. What's going on, Bill? Says, RBN banned me, Sabby. Sorry, I can no longer watch you there. Banned you? What do you mean by banned you? You have to let me know. Shout out to Knight of the Sun Bro. The Ryan Grimgard wants to be Kyle Kuklinski. The Ryan Grimgard. You guys are funny tonight. Shout out to MJ, says happy Friday for all. What's going on? Microsoft Word technical support. Hi, Sabby. You cool in my book. Thank you so much. Shout out to Andrew for the super chat, says Sabby is vengeance. I am vengeance. Oh man. Should be interesting night. Shout out to Nick, says happy Friday all. Nice to see you, Sabby. Good vibes to you too. Thank you so much. All right, let's go ahead and get started because I do have a panel coming on at 8:30. So let me go ahead and share my screen and show you what we're going to be discussing tonight. Let's go ahead and get into it. Tonight, we're discussing Shama Sawant pushes back. Oh, what does Shama Sawant say about Bernie Sanders and AOC? We're also going to discuss Biden backs down. What did he promise and what is he not promising anymore? And of course, jail coalition joins. So should be interesting tonight. All right. And I want to also shout out everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. I really do appreciate it. Really does go a long way. All of their names are mentioned here. If you're interested, you can be a Sabby patron. I have 5 categories: members, Sabby, Sabsters, Sabinators, and the ultimate. Thank you so much. And I want to give a special shout out to new patrons, G.A. Freckles and Frank Polites. Thank you so much. Their names are also scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Let's go ahead and get started with this Joe Biden story. I got to get into this. I warned people not to get excited. So here we go. Biden taking hard look at student loan forgiveness. Oh, they crack me up. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. President Joe Biden said Thursday that he's taking a hard look at canceling additional federal student loan debt and will reach a decision within a month. He's taking a hard look, you guys. I don't know what else he has to look at, but it is what it is at this point. I'm considering dealing with some debt reduction, Biden told reporters in the Roosevelt Room at the White House. The comments came days after Biden had a private meeting with Democratic lawmakers who pressed him on the issue. One of the lawmakers, Representative Tony Cardenas, Democrat from California, said afterwards that Biden disclosed he's exploring the possibility. However, Biden signaled in his Thursday remarks that he wouldn't go as far as some activists want, saying $50,000 in debt forgiveness was not under consideration. He did not give a number for what he is considering. So I tried to warn people about this. I saw people were getting excited on social media. They're like, "Oh my God, Joe Biden says he might cancel, some student led. He's going to do it. He's going to do it." And I'm like, don't believe it until you see it. Nothing has happened. You have to remember, we are now in midterms. So people, a lot of these politicians, they're going to come to you with all kinds of promises just so you can vote for them again. Right now, the Democratic Party is fearful of losing the House. So that's a big part of this. They also might lose the Senate as well. And of course, in 2024, the White House. If they really cared this much about student loan debt and they were serious about trying to cancel it, then they would have been talking about this last year. They would have made moves for this last year. They waited until it's midterms, and now they're going to make promises to people just so you can vote for them again. And Joe Biden is already wavering on the amount. What happened to Joe Biden saying that he was going to forgive student loan debt for students that went to HBCUs? That's gone. Then at one point, he said up to $10,000. My student loans haven't changed, so I haven't seen that either. And now he's saying, well, $50,000 was never on the table. Now, that was brought up by Elizabeth Warren. She was really pushing for that. And I told you guys before, I think if they're going to cancel it, they need to cancel all of it. $10,000 isn't even going to cancel interest for some people. So he's not serious about it. And I'm going to show you why he's not serious about it in just a second. But let me go back into the article. I'm in the process of taking a hard look at whether or not there will be additional debt forgiveness, he said. And I'll have an answer on that in the next couple of weeks. During his campaign, Biden said he wanted to immediately cancel at least $10,000 in student debt per person. So far, he's repeatedly extended a pause on requiring borrowers to repay their loans, a moratorium that was put in place under then President Donald Trump nearing the beginning of the pandemic. So I'm glad that they pointed this out, and not to cheer on Donald Trump, but I'm glad that they did mention this was originally started under Trump, not under Joe Biden. Although activists have been encouraged by their increasing traction on this issue, some said they were concerned that Biden wouldn't go far enough. President Biden, we agree that we shouldn't cancel $50,000 in student loan debt. We should cancel all of it. Now, that's coming from Wisdom Cole. He's the national director of the NAACP Youth and College Division. $50,000 was just the bottom line. Oh, they're getting brutal here. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said Thursday that Biden was still considering whether to tie debt relief to borrowers' income levels, an idea he's floated in the past. She said it's certainly something he would be looking at. Let's talk about that for just a second. See, he's thinking about means testing it. And you guys know how I feel about means testing. If you're going to do it for everyone. Don't just do it based on income. This is exactly what they did for the stimulus payments. And I didn't agree with that either. I said, just give it to everybody, because your income doesn't necessarily determine how much you can pay back. Let me give you an example. Let's say you make $100,000 a year. Sounds good, right? Depends on where you live. $100,000 a year here in Boston, that's okay. You're not rich. In some places, like if you live down south, $100,000, that's a big deal in South Carolina, right? That's not so much a big deal here in Boston. Boston is expensive. So you can make $100,000 a month, but if your rent is $2,500 a month, even if you have roommates, you still have that. Then you still have to pay for other expenses. If you have a car insurance, all of that jazz that you have to deal with. But the problem that a lot of us face here is that most of our income goes to our rent or to our mortgage. That's where the bulk of our money goes. I know I'm on a budget, so I see where my money goes. So there's a lot of things that need to change. Number one, people need to be paid a living wage. Yes. But at the same time, we have to do something about rent. At one point in time, Boston had rent control. We don't have that anymore. I think they stopped it in the 90s. We also don't have rent stability. And that means that the landlords can increase the rent as much as they want with no penalty. There's no repercussion. So even if they gave everyone a living wage, even if he canceled student loan debt based on income, for those of us that live in these cities like Boston, Los Angeles, New York, we're not really going to benefit that much from that because the cost of living is so expensive. The landlords are not stupid. What they'll do, they'll increase the rent, which they're still doing, by the way. Even during a pandemic, landlords are increasing the rent. They'll find a way to get the money from you. So I don't agree with means testing it. I think you should just do it for everyone. I want to go back to the example of the stimulus checks again, because there's something I noticed about that. The stimulus checks, it was based on your income from the year before. If you were one of the people that had your hours cut, or you had shifts cut because of the pandemic, or you lost your job for whatever reason and say you did not qualify for unemployment, well, the income that you made the year before was no longer your current income. Do you see what I mean? This is why I didn't want them to means test it. Just give it to everyone. Just give it to everybody. Just do the damn thing. Let's go back in here. So this is back to Jen Psaki. She rejected criticism from Senator Mitt Romney from Utah and others that debt relief amounts to a political giveaway. Biden's goal, Psaki said, is to continue to provide relief to people who need it most to help people get some extra breathing room. But again, they don't know everyone's living situation. They don't know your income situation. Like they're just looking at numbers on a paper. And they're probably going to look at the amount before taxes. They like to do things like that. They don't know your actual living situation. So how do you know who needs it most if you're just looking at their income? I just think this is a ridiculous idea. I don't think Joe Biden's going to do this at all. He's already starting to backtrack. I want to show you something from our friend Pat the Burner. He says it so well. While Dems control the House and the Senate, considering eliminating a majority of student loan debt. Listen to this. Yesterday, whoa, not 50K. Today, muling 10K. Tomorrow, if Dems control the House and the Senate after midterms, I'll go big. After losing the House in midterms, we tried. And he's right. He's exactly right. I don't know if you guys follow Pat the Burner on Twitter, but you should definitely check him out. I do follow him, but this is definitely not my Twitter account. No, it's not. I just realized that. That's Eric's, I think. So definitely check him out because he has some great things to say. But again, it's just Biden mules for giving $10,000 in student loans per borrower. He's just thinking about it. He's thinking about 10,000. Let me show you why he's not serious about it. Now, I've talked before on this show about the donors, where a lot of the money comes from for some of these politicians that are in office. And when we talk about student loans, there is no better predatory student loan lending company than Sallie Mae. I could do a whole show about Sallie Mae, but I want to show you why they don't really want to do this. So this is Open Secrets, and you can look this up on your own, by the way. Open Secrets, public information. This is the PAC profile for Sallie Mae. Now, pay close attention here. Let's go down. Now, this is how much Sallie Mae has donated per party by election cycle. Obviously, blue is Democrat, red is Republican. So I want to start with 2016. If you notice, in 2016, Sallie Mae was actually giving more money to Republicans, 32.1K, than to Democrats, 18.1K. But as we go through the election cycles, you will see that this changes. In 2018, you can see Democrats are receiving more money from Sallie Mae, and so are Republicans. Let's go over to 2020. This is where the big change happens. In 2020, all of a sudden, Democrats are taking more money from Sallie Mae. These are your elected officials in DC, ladies and gentlemen. They are taking more from Sallie Mae than Republicans are now. You see the change? And then we'll go over to 2022. And the reason why it drops so low is because student loan payments have been put on hold. So obviously, Sallie Mae is not giving as much money right now. So let's look at this a little bit closer. I want to go to candidate recipients. There's a couple of people on here I want to point out to you because I think you'll start to understand why they have the talking points they have. And this is why I always tell you, make sure you follow the money. So when it comes to campaign contributions to federal candidates, for election cycle 2020, Sallie Mae donated $36,000 to Democrats, $34,500 to Republicans. Let's go further down. Let's look at the candidates that they donated to. I want to point out, obviously there's Republicans on here, but I want to point out the Democrats because I think you should know who's taking money from these student loan companies. We have Lisa Blunt Rochester. She's from Delaware. Henry Cuellar, and by the way, this does not surprise me. Henry Cuellar, he's running against Jessica Cisneros in Texas again. He takes a lot of corporate money. He's actually more of a conservative Democrat. That's what he calls himself. So he's on here as well. You have Brian McAdams from Utah. You also have Jim Cooper from Tennessee. Let's go to the second page. And then you'll have Jennifer Wexton from Virginia. But let's change election cycles and let's go back to 2018. This is what's cool about Open Secrets. You can just kind of snoop around here, looking at some numbers. Now, again, in 2018, Sallie Mae was donating more to Republican politicians than Democrat politicians. But I want to point out some people that are on this list that you might be surprised by. Make sure I got everybody. Someone's name is missing. I saw it earlier. I think I went to the wrong cycle. Hold on. Maybe it was 2016 that I saw it. I don't know why I don't see. Oh, there we go. Okay. In 2016, you have Kirsten Sinema. That does not surprise me. But the person I wanted to point to that was on this list, I thought he was on this one. Maybe not. One second. Oh, he is on that one. Let me go back. I have to go down to the Senate. Let's go down to the Senate. You can see the House and you can see Senate on here as well. Here we go. Chris Coons from Delaware, top recipient in the Senate for donor money from Sallie Mae. Now, why is this important? And it's not just Chris Coons. As you can see again, Kyrsten Sinema's on here as well. Chris Coons. Chris Coons was one of the Democrats in the Senate that voted against $15 minimum wage. So was Kyrsten Sinema. Just something I think we need to point out. This is why I tell people to pay very close attention to where the money is coming from. So the reason why I wanted to show you this is because if at any point there is a bill or there is a piece of legislation that comes through and let's say it passes the House for canceling student loan debt, Chris Coons and Kyrsten Sinema and all the other Democrats on that list are probably going to vote against it. Now, I don't know if legislation is going to come through the House. If it's going to pass, don't know. One second. I think my Wi-Fi got a little bit fuzzy. Okay. Don't know if that's going to happen, but if it does, those people that I just showed you are probably going to vote against it. That's why it's important for people to see this. Lawrence Johnson is right. You got to follow the money. Got to follow the money. Now, let's go back in because there's something else I wanted to show you as well. Tim Kaine. Does everybody remember Tim Kaine? Wasn't this Hillary Clinton's running mate? He takes money from Sallie Mae. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is a big part of the problem. You have to know where the money is coming from. And you can look up anyone here. You can look up anyone. Let me see if I can go to Joe Biden. 2020. I don't care if he was the winner. Here we go. Let's go to contributors. So I want to show you who donates to Joe Biden. This one is very concerning. Bloomberg. You guys see how much money Bloomberg LP donated to Joe Biden? Bloomberg. Mike Bloomberg has a media company. People don't see this as a conflict of interest. Bloomberg, let's go down. I'm going to pick out the ones that I know may be an issue. It seems like the University of California has money to donate to Joe Biden, but they don't have money to give their students more scholarships. Yes, I said it. Very interesting. Here's another one, Alphabet Inc. Now, they are also the same company that donates to Ro Khanna. Alphabet Inc. includes Google. So Google is a part of Alphabet Inc. Interesting, huh? Again, if you don't do your research, and most people, they won't dig further than this, they'll just see Alphabet Inc. and just say, okay, some company, Alphabet Inc. You have to actually research those companies. Take that company, put it in Google, DuckDuckGo, and research it and find out what exactly those companies are. That's important for people to know. I think I have a super chat. Thank you for the super chat, Rodrigo. Kyle K losing subs and Sabby growing, well-deserved. Oh, thank you, Rodrigo. Yeah, I'm not even going to get into that discussion. I've talked about that before. Thanks for the super chat, Andrew. Liberals act like Biden is a fire-breathing populist when he gives people $2 and a cheeseburger with no cheese. What we need is health care. I second that. Thanks for the super chat as well, Andrew. I was excited when my hourly wage went from $12 an hour to $15 an hour. And then gas prices went to $4.50 per gallon. This is why people can't get ahead. Because if they give you an increase in one area, then they just raise the costs, they raise the prices on other things that you're already paying for. For example, you get a raise at work. That's great. We usually get about a 2.8% raise sometimes a little bit more if you're lucky. But health insurance premiums increase too. So did you really get a raise? Gas prices went up, everything else goes up. So you're not really getting an increase like you think. Steve said Sally is a billionaires. Comrade Cam, this is why they're against debt cancellation and free college. That's part of the reason. And the other reason is the military industrial complex. One of the reasons why they don't want to cancel student loan debt, they don't want to give us free college, is because those are two incentives to joining the military. Those are two incentives to joining the military: free college, canceling student loan debt. That's how it works. So if they were to give that away, that takes away a benefit of being a part of the military. It's important that people know that and that people understand. I'll go ahead and take those comments on Rockfin, Eric. All right. Thanks for the tip on Rockfin, Roger Meadows. Corporate outlets. Oh, okay, sorry. Hey, Sab, missed your show Wednesday, only caught the very end. When I watched it on the rewind, I caught something I don't think anyone else might have. When you were replaying an interview you did with Kim, where she said that she used to get into arguments with her dad all the time about watching Rising, telling him by watching that show, he's contributing to the destruction of independent media because corporate outlets will look at Rising and copy it, elevating corporate in the algorithm while burying independent media, and that he shouldn't support it. Yet months later, she turns around and supports it by being a regular on the show. I don't see how that squares. I mean, isn't she violating her own standards she set for herself when that statement she made on your show? Kim drew a hard line in the sand, then stepped over her own line. The brothers went in with guns and came out with jobs. It's all about independent movement, fighting the man until the man makes you an offer you can't refuse, is how I see it. This is not the same thing as people like Dora and West going on Tucker and Ingram to introduce their audience to part of the left they never hear from. They never called for the taking down of a specific show, saying that show is a danger to all of us. So going by her own words, she has now joined them in the taking down of indie media in exchange for her personal show getting more viewership. I mean, I'm sure she doesn't see it that way, and people don't want to see themselves as violating their own standards, but no one forced these standards on her but her, just saying. Thanks so much for that, Roger. All right. So that is just something you guys need to be aware of. We need to be conscious of that. There's a reason why they're not trying to cancel these things. And I can see that my guest is here. I'm going to go ahead and bring her on. Hello.
Hi. So glad to be on. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks so much for coming on. You'll have to tell me, how do you pronounce the county jail? The name of the county jail?
Cuyahoga County.
Cuyahoga County. Okay. And your name is pronounced Azura?
Yes.
Okay. All right, guys. So Azura is here. She is from the Cuyahoga County Jail Coalition in Cleveland, Ohio. And I really want to hear about this. I'm not in favor of building more prisons, jails. I don't think that's the answer. But Azura, I want to go ahead and let you introduce yourself and explain to everyone how you joined the Jail Coalition and how this all started.
Sure. So the Jail Coalition is obviously a coalition. I'm the director of Prison Abolition Prisoner Support, or PAPS, which is a pen pal to prisoners organization, which pen pals with people who are in Ohio and in other states. So part of the reason why I ended up joining the Cuyahoga County Jail Coalition is because my now husband, who I met as a pen pal, was at one point incarcerated in the Cuyahoga County Jail. And then when we were trying to get him released from prison, we were hoping that he would be able to be granted a judicial release. And in order to do that, I needed to organize with some folks that were in Cleveland. And that was how I and my organization ended up joining the Jail Coalition. So the coalition obviously represents a whole bunch of different organizations that have come together to, one, stop any building of a new jail in Cuyahoga County in Cleveland, and two, eventually shut down the current county jail. So those are, our two goals. And then obviously there are lots of member organizations that are part of the coalition: Black Lives Matter Cleveland, Safer Cleveland, Surge, a whole host of folks that are part of the coalition that are coming together. How am I doing so far? Did you have any other questions or?
Oh, you're doing great.
So anyway, the idea is that in Cuyahoga County, they recently came up with this thing that they're called the Justice Center Steering Committee. And that's basically a group of government officials that have been either appointed or elected to consider possibilities to either renovate the new jail, renovate the existing jail, right? Because there are some structural issues with it, or to build a brand new jail, which they're claiming is going to cost just $550 million. We obviously think that that's likely to go way over budget. So kind of out of nowhere, this steering committee announced that they were going to have a meeting, and that in that meeting, they were planning on purchasing a site in the Cuyahoga County area, in the Cleveland area, that would be the site of the new jail. And we rallied about 20 people to come and give testimony against, either talking about how this money could be better spent on housing and, basically CARES, not jails, but also talking about the environmental aspect of the site that was chosen. Because the day before the initial meeting, we came to find out that this site had been considered as the site of a men's prison in the 1980s and had been rejected by the then Republican governor in the 80s on environmental grounds, because they basically came to the conclusion that the steel yard site was just too expensive to be able to, that it would cost too much money to environmentally rehabilitate the site to build a men's prison, which then ended up going to Grafton Correctional instead. In Lorain County. So now they're reproposing this exact same piece of land. Well, meantime, they're also claiming that the current jail would just be too expensive to rebuild, but they're having the same contractors making the decision, or the same, consultants was the word that I was looking for, that are considering this decision. So obviously, we think that there's something fishy going on, because why are they consistently asking for this same site to be proposed as a site of incarceration? Who owns this land? What are their political connections? Why is it that they're claiming that this is going to be so expensive, right? That's one set of questions. And then two, how is it that you're claiming that to remodel the existing jail would cost more than $550 million? Like, that just seems unreasonable to me personally. So that's kind of the environmental landscape and the fiscal landscape. It should be mentioned that Cuyahoga County Jail has had multiple deaths, the most recent being Shondo Moffitt, and it is the position of the Cuyahoga County Jail Coalition, our organization, that building a new building is not going to stop these deaths, that this is predominantly having to do with the staff culture at these facilities. These folks are not dying as a direct result of anything architectural, right, or plumbing or something like that. They're dying because they're being denied medical attention, and because correctional officers are not intervening in situations where they ought to be intervening. And building a new jail is just not going to fix any of those problems.
I'm curious, where is the money coming from for them to build a new jail?
Excellent question. So what they want to do is take what had been a temporary sales tax and extend it in order to raise these $550 million. And this is the part where I think your listeners who are very savvy are going to really love this, because the current county executive has announced his retirement. All of the folks that are running for his position have said that they don't think that this tax should be extended without the voters specifically getting to weigh in on that. Yet they want to buy the land to build this jail. So I do want to say, though, that there is one silver lining to this. So after the first meeting, where they thought that they were just going to waltz in, get the approval to buy the land, we rallied 20 people to give testimony against. Also, Cleveland.com did some really good reporting, Cleveland. So thank you so much to those journalists. And to make a long story short, they tabled it. And then after, they came back and they decided to have a second meeting. Now, they had to give 4 business days of warning that they were going to have this second meeting. So when do they make the announcement of the meeting? On Good Friday, which is technically a business day. But I mean, I don't know about you, but most people, like I work a half day on Good Friday, right? So once again, we rally, let's say 20 people to come to this second meeting. And we're giving testimony about all of these issues in the public comment section that they hadn't considered, right? So what ended up happening was they basically took the language that they were planning on voting on and they just scrapped it. And they completely changed the language based on our testimony to now shift to there is going to be a third-party independent assessment of whether and how expensive it would be to renovate the current jail. In addition, they're going to require an environmental assessment of their preferred steel yard site before they can go forward with purchasing the tract. So that happened because of community members coming in and giving that public testimony during public comments. But as Judge Michelle Early pointed out, who's one of the members of the committee, there is a fundamental problem here that there have been no town halls done. There has been no way for the community to really come and give our input on what we want done with this particular jail and with this particular facility. Because, most people can't make a public comment time that's, announced at 10, and then we didn't really even get a chance to speak until 12:30 on a Thursday. For most people, that means taking the day off work, and you can't put into your manager on Good Friday saying that you're going to do that. Oh, Josiah, go ahead. Introduce yourself and tell these lovely folks about your role in the Jail Coalition and how you came to join.
Yeah, sure. Sorry I'm late. I got carried away with a little yard work, and lost track of time. So my apologies. Yeah, Josiah Quarles. I came into, the Cuyahoga County Jail Coalition, kind of through like 2 different avenues, I guess. I'm an organizer with Black Spring Cleveland, which is an abolitionist organization, grassroots, doing mutual aid, and trying to imagine alternatives to incarceration and the carceral system in general, both front end and back end, and also through some work that I did and have been doing on the behalf of Miss Samaria Rice to try to attain, justice for Tamir, long awaited. So those 2 avenues brought me into coalition, and I have my own history with both, the police and their misconduct, as well as passing through the gates of the Cuyahoga County jail myself on a couple of occasions. So this was a really important thing for me personally, as well as ideologically. So it kind of what brought me here.
Awesome, awesome. I have a couple of questions. One, so I showed everyone the website here. I am curious, have you spoken to any politicians in that district about this issue?
So there have been conversations with. Do you mean the county district, or you mean like the city?
Either one.
So just to clarify why Josiah is asking the question, one of the things that's a little frustrating about this situation is that they want the jail to be within Cleveland city limits, but it's technically a county jail, which means that the people who are voting on it are the county politicians. So the mayor of Cleveland does have some sway in the situation, but it's not the same level that would be had if this were a city jail. The other thing that's bonkers to me, okay, because I live in Austin, Texas. I'm just up here, right, because of my husband and his situation. So we're going to have to be in Cleveland for a few months. They don't elect their sheriff here.
What?
Their sheriff is appointed.
Yeah.
So normally what you would do is you would go and you would have a conversation with the sheriff, right? Because the sheriff is seen as the person who's going to oversee the jail. And if you don't like their solution, then you run somebody against them. That's not possible here.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I had no idea.
And in fact, our last sheriff actually had to resign under indictment.
What?
For his role in the current jail, as well as the warden, both of them.
Oh, I think you cut out for just a second.
We can't hear you. Okay, I'm just going to fill some dead air. So we have had some meetings with some of the officials that are on this steering committee, right? So for example, we have met with Judge Sheehan. We have met with the public defender's office. We have made an attempt to meet with the prosecutor's office. That has not gone as well as we would like. Probably not a story that I should tell on air, to be perfectly honest with you. And we are continuing to try to meet with some of these folks that are on the steering committee. We have also been meeting with some of the people who are running for the county executive seat. Now, I should mention that since the Jail Coalition is a 501c3, we're not legally allowed to make political endorsements, but we are making connections there as well, right? To try to see which county executive, or for any of them really, to be able to be swayed against the building of a new jail. And the good news is that all three of the candidates have in some way, shape, or form come out in varying degrees of opposition to the current plan. So that's really exciting. I think that one of the things that complicates matters a little bit is that there's a lot of focus on Nina Turner and her race against Cheryl Brown right now, which is a little bit of an issue because technically speaking, they don't have any direct oversight over this issue. Also, neither of the candidates, as far as I know anyway, has officially made a statement one way or the other regarding the county jail. So part of the reason why that's confusing is that obviously as we're going into midterm elections, a lot of people are focused on those races and they're not necessarily thinking about county executive, right? Because it's not an election that most people notice or care about, quite frankly. And there's still the possibility that this Justice Steering Committee could purchase the land to build the new jail before November. And then whoever ends up becoming the new county executive is going to have this land on hand and may not be able to do anything with it if it turns out that the environmental cleanup costs are more expensive than they're predicting.
So, okay, so this is in the district with Nina Turner. So does Chantel Brown know has she said anything about it or no?
As far as I know, neither have made a statement. So it is within their district, but neither of them has made a statement.
I will say that there has been some contact with Nina Turner's folks, and they were very amenable to our perspective. So I can't say that I've been following like overly closely that campaign, other than trying to like tune out all the negative ads bombarding me from every direction when I try to watch a YouTube video or something. But I do know that at least from Nina Turner's camp, generally speaking, they have been on board with finding an alternative to spending, or at least waiting to spend this type of money on a jail without like real data that could back that up, without really fleshed out avenues of care when this is supposed to be like quote unquote a more humane jail. All of those avenues of care are not really fleshed out. They're really just kind of like ambiguous, and the idea that like more light is going to solve all our problems. I'm all for people getting light. Like, people need vitamin D, and sunshine is good for everybody, but that's not a silver bullet. But I will say, I don't know any quotes from Nina Turner.
Yeah, they have not made any public statements. I mean, and I think that part of the problem is journalists are not asking these questions, right? So we can reach out to the campaign and we can ask, we would love for you to make a statement one way or the other. But ultimately, unless somebody in journalism, I think, really asks these camps these questions and helps us to make it into a campaign issue, I don't know that we're going to get a firm statement one way or the other, because the truth is, saying nothing is more politically expedient, right? It may be the case that the candidate herself, has a private opinion, but these are things that we need them to make a stand on. But that having been said, I think that this really has been a power of the people campaign, right? Because the people who turned out at that Justice Steering Committee meeting, I think somebody said that they're not even used to getting that many people coming to city council meetings or general county council meetings. So I know that 20 may not seem huge, right? I mean, in Austin, Texas, we sometimes have public comments that go all the way into 3 o'clock in the morning. But for Cleveland and its population, this was an absolute amazing turnout, right? And folks that had no association with the coalition, right? There was a professor who came and gave a presentation. See, and you haven't asked about this, but one of the things that blows my mind about this current situation, they can't even say what numbers they think the county jail should hold. Because one of the things that happened during COVID is that they went through and they did some kind of really quick plea agreements, which may or may not have been a really good strategy. They put a lot more people on electronic monitoring, which obviously has its own issues. They put more people on house arrest, and they brought the population of the jail down substantially. So it's our position that if they were to make those temporary measures permanent, that we could bring the population of the jail down to, say, 850. But right now, they're trying to say that they need 1850. And one of the comments that I gave during the public comment section is, you cannot purchase land for a building when you don't even know how many people you think this building ought to house. You need to get that question answered before you can say whether it's possible to fix the current jail. Because if you're trying to fix the current jail for 1850 and you're saying that that's going to cost however much money, that's very different than if you're trying to fix the current jail for a population of 850. Similarly, you're going to buy 3 different pieces of land to put together for a jail. Okay, but if you need 1,000 fewer jail beds, that's going to make a huge difference in the amount of land that you need. But they're not giving a firm answer on that either.
Well, my question is, instead of building another jail, why not try to fix the poverty issue? Because the crime issue is directly linked to poverty. Like, this should not be the answer. Like, they're building a new jail. Are they building new schools? Are they hiring more teachers?
Right.
Are they this just has to stop. Like, this is not the answer. Like, they have all this money to do this, but when it comes to education, they claim they don't have any money. The funding's not there.
Exactly.
And that's an issue near and dear to my heart because I'm an educator, right? I teach at a community college and I believe in the power of education. I believe in the power of education for people to retool and retrain and be able to get better jobs. And Cleveland, unfortunately, is an area that doesn't have an awful lot of economic opportunity. I mean, there's some things coming in, but this is a city that has been consistently contracting in terms of its economic impact. So there are 550 million things that we think would be better to use this money on than a jail. Go ahead, Josiah. I totally talked over you there.
Yeah, no, it's fine. And I mean, I was literally at a reentry resource fair yesterday at Oriana House, and I sat there, and there was 10 to 15 different tables about employment, and I was there as in NEOC capacity, and I was sharing a table with somebody doing healthcare. They just hit me up like, "Hey, I'm going to be tabling. You want to come?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And I got there and I'm like, I can make some connections with some housing folks, some reentry housing folks while I'm here. There was literally absolutely zero people there that had anything to do with housing at all. And so we have a situation in Cleveland. I mean, a jail in its essence, right, is housing for people while they're under some kind of sanction or some kind of investigation. And if we were to put some money into housing and open that field up, right, then the things that you're talking about as far as like the early release, like eliminating the cash bail, the electronic monitoring, all of these things can come into play if you open up avenues of housing, because that's what a jail is for the most part. And we just have not invested in our housing stock and have really just invested in the investors via tax abatements, which, to your point about the schools, all that tax money is not going to the schools because they're getting these 15-year tax abatements. And you wonder why the population of Cleveland does not grow when we're putting all of the investments in, because people stay in a place because they're raising a family, right? It's just not community-centered development, right? So there are so many avenues, whether it be like the food deserts that exist currently, or the lack of housing, where you have, like right now, to get into a permanent supportive housing, you have to be on the street for 365 days. A whole year to get into permanent supportive housing, which is just insane. Like, what are we doing? Like, why are we punishing people because they're in a bad situation by making them remain in that bad situation, for an entire year, so that they can just be more trauma upon more trauma and have the opportunity to get desperate and do something that ends them up in jail. If we can just break that so many of the people who reside in jail are either, one, just awaiting trial, or two, just cycling back through because they have nowhere else to go.
And to add to that, so, I live in Austin, usually. My husband was being released under transitional control, right? So that's why we're here in Cleveland. So he was yesterday at Oriana House, which is a transitional halfway house. And then today was released on an ankle monitor, right? Which is awesome. I mean, as much as there are issues with ankle monitors, but I'm beyond happy to have my husband home. But the reason I point all of this out is that, he married well. I make good money. I was trying to find felon-friendly housing in Cleveland that was going to be short-term transitional housing. We needed something from March until June. It was impossible, because all of that housing has gone into the Airbnb market, quite frankly. So we had gotten an Airbnb, and then the owner refused to make repairs, basically decided that she could rent to somebody who was going to be less a stickler. And I was looking at paying $1,600 a month for that short-term housing. So when you have so many owners that are just not willing to rent to felons, are not interested in doing something that would be a transitional type housing situation or a temporary housing situation. That makes it really, really difficult. So fortunately, one of the members of the jail coalition happened to have some roommates that were moving out, and we were able to move in with him, and it all worked out. But my question is, okay, for people who don't have the kinds of means that our family had and don't have the kind of political connections that we had, it would have been absolutely impossible to find housing, right? So if we're going to consider this $550 million project as a public housing project, right, because it is housing, what would be the possibility of building, subsidized housing with that kind of money, right? I'm not saying, maybe we can buy this piece of land, right? And maybe it can be environmentally rehabilitated, but what would it look like to build housing in it that is, effective community housing versus rehabbing something and then turning it into incredibly expensive condos, right? Because there hasn't been, as far as I know anyway, any sort of large scale public investor in housing in Cleveland, within my lifetime.
Yeah. And I want to mention to people, I don't know if everyone is aware of this, but at one point in time, Cleveland had the most Fortune 500 companies in the country. At one point in time. This is what happens when, a lot of jobs were shipped overseas and factories closed. But at one point in time, it wasn't that way. Same with Detroit. So I want to thank you guys so much for coming on. I'll be sure to spread the message about this so more people are aware that this is happening because, someone reached out to me on Twitter and told me about it. And I had no idea that this was happening. So thank you so much for coming on. And where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, definitely. You can follow us on Twitter at Jail Coalition, I think is our social media for all of the different mediums that we are on. You can email us. We have general meetings that you can attend. If you don't necessarily have to be in the Cleveland or Cuyahoga County area in order to join us, we definitely need folks to help us with doing media and social media things that can be done from elsewhere. If you are in the Cleveland area, they're supposed to have another meeting of this committee and they could still vote to buy the land and move forward. So it's really important for people to get connected with us to continue to pressure the public officials in their area at the county level in order to make sure that they understand that we don't want this tax to become permanent and that we don't want a new jail in Cuyahoga County.
Okay. And I'll be sure to go ahead and put your Twitter handle in the chat as well so people can follow you. Again, thank you so much for coming on. I'll be sure to let my comrades over at RBN Revolutionary Blackout Network know about this as well.
Awesome. We would love to, continue to come on and continue to have these conversations.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
Talk to you later.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye. All right, guys. It's important to hear these conversations. Again, like you need to know about people who are doing this type of action on the ground. And if you know more people about this, again, a lot of people reach out to me via DM, but email me as well. Let me know like what's going on in your area. If there are activists out there and they're fighting for something, let me know. Let me know about it. I'd love to have them on. I'm going to go into our next story, and this is actually the subject for the call-in show tonight. We're going to talk about Shama Sawant. Now, I don't know if everyone has seen this. There are two spots here that I do want to highlight. Shama Sawant had an interview. I can't talk, sorry. An interview recently with Status Quo, and she was talking about the Amazon union efforts and also the Democratic Party. And so I want you to hear what she says. This is the first clip that I want to play. So I'm just going to fall back here. And here we go.
Raise the question of a new party for the working class.
Right. And let me also ask you, because it seems to me that, Bernie, when Obama was president, he stood outside the White House with protesters for Dakota Access Pipeline. I know he did a couple other protests while Obama was president, directly thumbing Obama's policies. We can't get in Bernie's head now, but It was effective. It was effective. AOC, when she first got in there, was protesting outside Pelosi's office, which got media coverage. So it just seems to me, put aside whatever their motivations are, but if their goal is to be effective, those strategies have been more effective in either raising awareness, inspiring or rallying the base, and building the progressive base and organizing. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me what they're doing now.
Yep. And I just want to chime in here for a second. And I want to remind you, why is that? Why is it that in the beginning, when AOC went in, she was protesting, outside Nancy Pelosi's office and stop that? Why is it that when Obama was in office, Bernie Sanders was protesting, against what he was just talking about with the pipeline? Why did they stop that? Because I'm willing to bet you that someone inside the Democratic Party spoke to them. I'm willing to bet that they were spoken to. If you want to continue your career, got to go along with the establishment line. You can't be too hostile. Can't fight too hard. Just a little bit to show that you're trying to do something, but not really do anything. I'm willing to bet that's what happened. Let's go back in.
But I wanted to ask you about specifically looking at Amazon. Do you think if they're successful at this second warehouse, which based on sources, they are going to be, what would you expect from Amazon? I mean, Amazon and Jeff Bezos more than most. Amazon won't even acknowledge the first victory. If there's a second victory at this smaller warehouse, I mean, I don't put it past Jeff Bezos, who's really still running this thing, even though he's not CEO anymore. I don't put it past them to start shutting down warehouses to make a point.
I mean, they could do that, absolutely, and they might do they might take other steps as well. What is clear is that they are not going to relent. And I think this question that you asked, interestingly, is actually connected to your earlier point as well. That it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for AOC to have done that really good, sort of occupying Nancy Pelosi's office alongside climate activists, for Bernie to have called out Obama and held rallies. That sort of thing works. So it doesn't make sense why they would stop doing that. I think that question is connected to this question as well, is what kind of sustained strategy do we need in the face of Amazon's opposition? So it basically comes down to a very fundamental fact that everybody has to understand. If you are interested in changing society for the better, then you better get this in your head, which is that the capitalist class, the billionaires, management at your company, they will not relent just because you have won.
And this is something that I want you to know. This is why I talk about the class issue a lot. What she just said, the millionaires and the billionaires will not relent. Those are the people that you should be focusing on. You should be, well, more so the billionaires than the millionaires, to be honest with you. Those are the people that you should be focusing on. Not so much the person to your left and the person to your right, but the people at the top with all the money. They are the ones that control what really goes on. They are the ones that control what can be said and what cannot be said. This is why we have all these issues with censorship now. If you've noticed, we've been talking about that a lot. They are the ones that control the narrative. That is why there's certain things we can't talk about. That is why there's certain perspectives that you will never hear on mainstream media. Not even just mainstream media, but also even in Hollywood. The people at the top are the ones you need to focus on. And she's right. They are relentless. And this is why I said, if we wanted a general strike, you can't have a general strike for one day. You can't have a general strike for 1 week. Amazon, Walmart, they can surpass that. That's nothing to them. If you want a general strike in this country, we would have to do things like shutting down transportation. We need to shut down the ports. That is how you would accomplish it. Because if you can't have products come in and products go out, that is what is really going to affect capital in this country. That's what I want people to understand. So yes, I still say it. Yes, if you want to boycott Amazon, do it. If you want to boycott Walmart, do it. But I want you to know that's pennies to them. You have to stop the transportation of the goods. As long as they can transport their product, they're still going to make money. Let's go back into this video.
One or two unions, they are not about to say, oh yes, morally you are right and I am wrong, and yes, it is wrong for Jeff Bezos to own all these billions, it's wrong for billionaires to have become trillions of dollars richer. Yes, you have educated me, now let's meet halfway at the table and you can get a $30 an hour wage. No, that is not how it works. The more you win, the harder they will go after you. And that is, and I'm not speaking in theory, that is exactly the experience we've had in Seattle over and over and over again, and they never give up. In fact,
did you hear what she just said? The harder you work, the more they're going to come after you. Let's look back at history. Look at what happened with Martin Luther King. Look at what happened with Fred Hampton, the Black Panther Party, which was a global party, by the way. If everyone doesn't realize that, there were Black Panthers in South Korea, not just the United States. Look at what happened to Malcolm X. The harder they worked, the more they did, the more they came after them. And it's not just the media. The media is controlled as well. It is the people who have the money. You need to watch out for the banks. You need to watch out for companies like BlackRock and Vanguard that are shareholders, multiple companies they're a part of. BlackRock is incredibly dangerous. They are buying up property and kicking people out. When I talk about gentrification, gentrification isn't just professional people moving into low-income neighborhoods and the landlord saying, okay, they're willing to pay anything, let me jack up the price of the rent. Part of gentrification is also companies like BlackRock going into these communities and buying up these properties and building these multi-million-dollar condos and renting them to people that can only afford them and kicking the poor people out. We have to pay attention to those companies as well. You have to really pay attention to commercial property, not just your local landlord. Let's go back in.
In 2019, we won our second re-election. Only months after I had won, they launched a recall attack against me. And we were able to defeat them, but only because we did not stop using the strategy of fighting. So my point being that whether it is elected representatives who genuinely want to fight for workers or workers themselves in union battles, there is no point, there's no magical end point for stopping your fighting strategy and then it can be peaceful. No, as long as it is capitalism, it is class war. And so
yes, 100%. As long as there is capitalism, there is a class war. You can't just push back and say, okay, we got what we wanted. We're all good. We're all set. No, they'll come back with something else. The reason why someone like Shama Sawant was able to win and the reason why she was able to beat her recall, no matter what hit her, no matter how many things like Amazon came after her, all these different companies and organizations in Seattle came after her, no matter what came after her, the reason why she was able to win, two things. Number one, she didn't stop fighting. Her group, Socialist Alternative, they did not stop fighting. And number two, she did not run in the two-party system. This is a big deal. This is why someone like India Walton, who was also a socialist or social dem, I think she called herself, this is why I believe her campaign failed. Because India Walton was running through the Democratic Party. Remember, at first she was leading. She was running through the Democratic Party. AOC came down and they gave her her endorsement. Chuck Schumer endorsed India Walton. And just like that, the numbers changed. The gentleman that she ran against ran as an independent, I believe. I have to double check. I believe it was an independent, but he won by write-in votes. Guys, he won by write-in votes. This is the thing. I sincerely wished India Walton would have ran outside of the two-party system. If there's any lesson I think we need to learn from Shama Sawant, she's proven that you don't have to do that. Now, yes, it's a local position, but still, City council, I told you guys, city council controls the budget. Let's go back in. Rodrigo, you said I didn't read your super chat. I thought I did. Eric, can you try to find that for me and star it just in case I missed it? All right, we're going to go back in.
There is no comfortable point in the future where then you can stop fighting. So in other words, if we want to replicate what ALU was able to win at JFK8, then we need a sustained and continuation, sustained continuation of that strategy in warehouse after warehouse, workplace after workplace, industry after industry, and we need those strategies to understand how to build solidarity. Obviously, tactically, the campaigns will vary because in the South, you'll have to take up different issues. In the West Coast, you'll have to, the terrain will be different, consciousness will be slightly different. But the point is that the basic ideas of a fighting approach, of a class struggle approach, they win hands down. And moreover, that is the only thing that wins. So unless you understand this, you will not be able to win. And the reason AOC and Bernie, for example, stopped doing those things, and I think there's a difference between Bernie Sanders and AOC in the sense that I think Bernie does believe in a sort of a fighting approach a little bit. I mean, I have some disagreements with him, obviously, and I don't think he goes far enough. But I think AOC and the squad really have not even come to the point where Bernie ever got, because they immediately got the memo from Pelosi and the power brokers that if you go...
See, this is what I was talking about. This is why they don't fight. They don't push back. They already got the memo.
Against us like in this way, then there will be a price to pay. So the question is, are they willing to pay that price? I am willing to pay that price. That is why we are still standing here, and that is why we have won all these victories. But it is not a test of personal purity. It is a question of what is the kind of political organization we can have in order to make possible what we have accomplished in Seattle, in order to win the kind of victories that ALU did. Those political organizations should be the central question. It should not be based on personalities or genius, whatever, like superstars. It should be based on what kind of union do we need? What are our concrete demands going to be? What is our strategy going to be to talk to workers? And electorally, the question should be what kind of political organizations do we need? What kind of campaign program should be? And who are the candidates we believe will actually stand up to the intense pressure, and that pressure never relents? So do we have people who will stand up to that pressure every single day of their lives? That is what it looks like.
Did you hear what she just said? That pressure is relentless. That pressure is not going to quit. Do we have the people that are willing to stand up to that type of pressure every day of their life? Do we have that right now in Congress? Do we have that right now in the Senate? I don't think so. The people who did stand up to that type of pressure, they're gone. The Democratic Party pushed them out. Nowhere, they're gone. So she's right. Notice she said that she's willing to fight back. She's willing to stand up to that type of pressure. Not everyone is, you guys. Even some of the people that ran on this and said that they were willing to fight back, that they were willing to take that pressure. They knew there was going to be a lot of pressure. It's easy to say that before you're in, but then once you're in and you actually feel that pressure and see what it's like, then that's a whole different story. It's a whole different story. I think the best thing that Shama Sawant ever did was run for local office. She can impact more change as city councilor, and she's already done that. And for those who don't know, Shama Sawant does not accept her full salary. She donates part of her salary to organizations. That's what you need. You need someone who's willing to do that. Someone who is willing to just say, I really don't need all this money. I'm going to take some of this money and donate it to activist groups and organizations to actually help people in the community. The problem is most people aren't willing to do that. That's a big part of the problem. I'm going to finish this clip and I'll go to the second one.
And a little breaking news, which seems...
Yep, not that part. So the next one is, let me come out here for a second. Believe the next spot is 4101. Okay, 4101. So This is another portion here that I want you to listen to that I think is really good. Right about here. When he's talking about people wanting to vote independent. Listen to this.
You might have seen this already, but a new poll, it's one poll, but it shows 58% of voters are open to an independent candidate if faced with Biden Trump. I think this brings us back to 2016 because I've always thought Bernie had a chance if he would have ran in the general as an independent, Green Party, whatever. What are your thoughts on that? We are obviously saying we can't exclusively depend on electoral politics, but if you have 58%, I mean, you're either going to have Biden or Trump or another highly unpopular Democrat, either first facing Trump or another unpopular Republican. What does that say to you?
It really says how that it's sort of, that poll actually, and in the context of all the things that we just discussed in the last several minutes.
Hold on, guys. It's like lag for a little bit. Let me see.
I think it shows again there's another chasm here, the gap between where the readiness of working people for a different kind of agenda, political agenda, the readiness, the willingness for a fight back, and the abysmal situation of political leadership that we have in our society, in our country. That's the gap where when 58% of Americans are ready for independent politics, and yet you don't have any significant force on the left that can actually lead on that understands the importance of that, which is why I think it is crucial that organizations like Socialist Alternative, we are ourselves a different kind of organization, and it's a very specific organization. We don't pretend to be that third party or that party for the working class, but we are among the few forces on the left who are just relentlessly pointing out the need for a new party. And look, now you have a poll that says that actually working people Americans are ready for that. But it's not going to happen, just by itself. That has to be taken on as a specific project. And I think that right now it is our responsibility, and you were indicating this earlier, to really make sure that major victories are won in the union struggles, and real contracts are won, strong contracts are won at JFK. Obviously, that's one of the most crucial ones, but also in the Starbucks stores. And at the same time, in this new labor movement, it is also our job to raise the question of a working class party. We have to keep doing that. And then, we have to call concretely, we need to join the new union movement alongside, National Day of Actions, as I was saying, and work stoppages and strike actions. Alongside that, we also have to call for mass conferences where working people, union members, unionizing workforces can come and discuss the need for a new party and what that new party should look like. I mean, it's not just any new party.
Right. You need something for the workers. You need something for working people, because let's be real, the Democratic Party claims to be the party of the working class people. They're not the party of the working class people. There is no party of the work. Like right now, we don't have it. We don't have it. And there needs to be something for the workers, the laborers of this country, where those people can have their voices heard. And when people say, well, they could just have a union or whatever, not everyone has a union. Not everyone can start a union. Like, yes, like you can fight to start one, but not everybody can start a union. And sometimes some of these people that try to organize these unions, these groups are shut down by the company. Sometimes some of these people are fired because they tried to start a union. They still have to pay their bills. So what are they supposed to do? But you need something for the working class people. And right now, the two-party system that we have in this country does not serve the workers. They don't serve the working class. They don't serve poor. They don't, if you're low income, and they're not even really serving middle class people anymore. Pay close attention.
We need a new party that will be accountable to the working class and that will run on, that will be primarily motivated by the program that they want to win and will be rooted in the working class and will not be driven by personality politics. I mean, that will be the death knell. Personality politics will be the death knell of any such new party.
One more.
Yes, personality politics. And we have that. We have personality politics. We have identity politics. It doesn't work. The Democratic Party is really good at that, by the way. Really good at that. Look at how they tried to push Kamala Harris on us. She could be the first Black woman, female, person of color president of the United States. That's the only reason you should vote for her. They did the same thing with Barack Obama. He will be the first Black president of the United States. How'd that turn out? I know I fell for it too. But you really got to look at what people do. You got to look at what they say. And you really have to look at their past. You have to look at their history and their track record. These are important things. I think there was one more thing he said, or that might be it.
You know, every time I have you on, the most prominent comment I see is, when is Shama Sawant going to run for Congress? I never go with that because I think there's real utility and benefit in having you on the local scene. But I do have to ask, have you ever considered running?
Well, you know, in the spirit of what I was just saying, again, that question is not something that I would ask myself personally, but, you know, that's a question that would come up in Socialist Alternative, because we are a model of that kind of campaign where, you know, where it's not, the starting point is not the candidate themselves and, you know, wanting themselves to raise their profile, but overall political question. What makes sense? What is the best thing that Socialist Alternative can do right now with its limited resources? Does it make sense to run for Congress or not? So yeah, I mean, those questions have come up in our discussions, in our national meetings, in our local meetings. It's not clear that would be the best use of where we should go. But at the same time, it's none of that is ruled out, in the sense that if there are genuine, you know, strategic openings for us to do that, and it makes sense to put a lot of effort into it, we absolutely will. Right now, obviously, you know, needless to say, our focus is very much so, including my office itself in Seattle, very much on helping as much as possible build for the unionizing movement in Starbucks and Amazon.
Okay, and I think that is pretty much it there. So I will say, if Shama Sawant were to run for a Congress position, I would like to see her, number one, not run as a Democrat. That would be a big, not run as a Democrat, not run as a Republican, but to run as an independent like she has before. And I would like to see her primary challenge Pramila Jayapal. That could be a little controversial, but I said it. I would like to see her challenge Pramila Jayapal. Pramila Jayapal is not looking too good right now. Let's be real. Not looking too good right now. But this is the discussion that is going to go into our call-in segment tonight. I'm going to hit up these super chats, and then we'll start to go into that. Thank you for the super chat, Akid. Sabby, Shama is outlining the strategy to be independent of Dems, GOP, and how to fight the system on behalf of everyday folks. Salute. 100%. Thanks so much for the super chat, Rodrigo. Yeah, I think I did read this, but I'll read it again. Kyle K losing subs and Sabby growing, well-deserved. Thank you so much for that. Lawrence said Democrats not even willing to donate any part of their bribes. Oof. And a kid says that Shama is incredible. Love, 100%. Agreed. And I think that, I mean, I have a lot to say. I'm going to go into talk more about this in the call-in portion, but I have a lot to say about this. I really think that we need to pay close attention to what Shama Sawant did and how she won. I've had her team on here before. Socialist Alternative has been on here multiple times. They explained what was happening right before the recall. They explained how they beat the recall afterwards. Shama Sawant came on here for the activist panel. She has a lot to say. She has a lot of energy. And the difference is she really is a fighter. Not everyone is that way. In fact, most people are not. Most people are not going to fight that type of pressure. The average person is going to succumb to it. That's the thing. So you really need a fighter, but at the same time, I think the model that she used, the fact that she was an activist, she doesn't take her full salary. She donates part of her salary to help out those organizations. She's on the ground with Socialist Alternative to fight back and to protest and to help people get what they need in her district. That's a lot. Is that the model that you think people should look at? So that's what I'm going to talk about for call-in. I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to get into the call-in segment. So Eric's going to pop on and check out some comments. And I'll be right
There
back.
I am. All right. How's everybody doing tonight? Yeah, we're gonna give Sabby a little break, and but she'll be back soon. I always feel like I'm the substitute teacher coming in, but she'll be on soon. I see Lucky in the chat, and of course the usual suspects like Gamer and Ashura. One thing. Oh, you know what I wanted to talk about was this. Y'all ready for the Misinformation Governance Board? That was something that just came through our own little Ministry of Disinformation. That's quite something. Basically bringing George Orwell to reality, and what I wanted to show up here was, see, an easy way to cheat on this is just to show and talk about Caitlin Johnstone, because you can just read what Caitlin's putting out there and never go wrong. But here she was hitting on the talking about PayPal getting in the in the censorship game here, and they hit Caleb Maupin. They hit Mint Press News and Alan McLeod. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, you had this BS excuse here. You can no longer use PayPal. After a review, we decided to permanently limit your account as we found potential risk associated with it. So now, if there's risk, then they can just get rid of you. Now, is PayPal Elon Musk? Maybe he was. I'm not sure if he still is. I should probably know that. I'll have to look that up later, whether he the connection is there and if it's still there. Yeah, there. And Caitlin noted how Mint Press News did a story on PayPal with Whitney Webb a while back, so who knows if that got them on their attention. Yeah, really lucky. Just risk. It's risky. It's like the lawyers getting in there and just like, this is too risky. You're gone. I see Lady Alex M on the Rockfin saying that's chilling and she loves Caitlin. Yes, definitely. And then I want to hit this part at the end too. Oh, and then of course you had Caleb Maupin also getting the boot. And yeah, I mean, this kind of connects into like what Max Blumenthal talks about with social credit and how they can just basically remove you from the system, from your money. We're gonna have to get real about dealing with this. So then at the end she hits, Caitlin says, we are at a profoundly dangerous and frightening point in human history. The U.S. proxy war against Russia and Ukraine is escalating by the day, and the drums of war are beating ever louder against China over the Solomon Islands and Taiwan. If you think censorship is bad now, wait until this power grab really gets going. And yeah, it's this whole idea of it's like, are they like just getting started? Is China going to is going to become even a bigger war, a bigger set of censorship? I mean, it's crazy. She noted the Mint Press News article about the concept of an intellectual no-fly zone, which I think they got from Matt Taibbi, because Matt Taibbi is really good at finding these at turns of phrase. So I think that originally came from Taibbi. But yeah, this whole concept of like you just can't talk about things anymore, or they're just gonna get you. The Hedges quote, censorship is the last resort of desperate and unpopular regimes. It magically appears to make a crisis go away It comforts the powerful with the narrative they want to hear, one fed back to them by their courtiers in the media, government agencies, think tanks, and academia. So now we've got, the interesting kind of thing, kind of mixing it up with Elon. Oh yeah, my shirt. Thanks for noting the shirt. Yeah, are we ready to foment some discord? Let's do it. So then you got, let me change the sizing a little. There we go. So we got Elon Musk and the whole Twitter thing, and it's this concept where the current ownership and the way Twitter is being run is so terrible that Musk coming in and taking it over can be an improvement, a slightly better billionaire. But I agree with Jalen. We got to see we got to start seeing the receipts and see that stuff start really happening. When you see Scott Ritter get his account back, I guess that'll be a sign that it's at least improving. And even frankly, getting Trump getting back on. I mean, it's if we're going to be consistent, then Trump is coming back. The other thing that I was hearing talked about today, I was watching because there was a lot on today. Huh? There was the RBN International Coalition Summit, and they were talking about. Well, I mean, there always seems to be this kind of like it's a competition between mutual aid and direct action and electoral politics. And what I would like to propose is, instead of talking about these things as being in competition and whether you want to put more towards one or the other, how can we merge these things? How can we say that we're going to have direct action and mutual aid and all those things towards getting us people running that we want to vote for? And I tend to come back to the demands. I mean, if we're doing these things, I feel like we need to have a coherent set of demands. And if you think that, and if you have the demands, they tend to lead you into these other things. In that, if you're viewing, like if you're making demands of Medicare for all and getting money out of politics, for real. Being anti-imperialist, demanding things like cutting the budget, like minimum 20%, just period, then that really excludes all the Democrats because they're not going to go for these things. And Sabby's coming back. Hey, let me see if I can hit this one chat. From @kid, do you think coders or programmers should be more engaged with mutual aid and direct action? How should they help? Yeah, I think that sounds great. I mean, I'm a programmer, engineer guy myself, and yeah, I mean, we have to come up with things like that. There are things like mesh networks that can really help. The other thing you can do is get involved with people online and things like and podcasters, vloggers, and help them out with their tech stuff. I think that's a really good thing too. Ready to get back into it?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do call-in. And I'll put the link, I had the link. The link is pinned at the top of the live chat. I'm going to go ahead and go live. Start the room.
Speaking of technology, yes, see if we can get this call-in to work again.
Let me grab that link really quick for you guys. Call in. Doobie doobie doo. All right, putting the link here in the chat for those of you who want to call in. And then I gotta add.
Anybody in the chat gonna call in?
All right, so we already got someone waiting
need to invite the other Sabby Sabs up to speak.
Yep. All right. Okay. Test, test. All right. If you guys can hear me on calling, can you give me a thumbs up? All right. They can hear me. So we are all set.
All right, carry on.
Okay. All right. Welcome to the call-in segment, guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast on call-in. So this is episode 9, the Shama Sawant example. Shama Sawant is an activist who beat her recall for city council in Seattle. She did not run through the Democratic Party. Should progressives follow Shama's model? And I'm going to go ahead and take the first caller, which is Eric. You're on the mic.
Hey, Sabby, how you doing?
Doing well, doing well.
Thank you for taking my call. I actually watched. I watched her. Sometimes I get it's kind of hard for me to say her name, Kshama, or Shama. I listened to her interview with Jordan on Status Scoop live while it was streaming, and there was some of us from the Watch Your Show, the Watch RBN. We were on the chat line while he was interviewing her, and we were just kind of bigging her up and just saying, like, giving her props. She's amazing. I mean, she is so much energy, and she's so the way she speaks and the way she sort of weaves all these ideas so seamlessly and so honestly without any sort of garbage. There's no garbage that she's pushing out. It's all being very honest, very strategic. She's not couching anything at all. She's not trying to put any sort of front. She's not trying to defend herself in any sort of way. She's laying out literally how people should do this. And if you listen to her, you can't help but understand that we're lucky that she's there. And I feel very lucky that I got to listen to her. And I hope that we can all support her in any way that we can, so that she can move forward, and that maybe others will do the same like her. I just love what she has to say. I mean, just strategically, I don't think I've heard anybody better in my lifetime without any sort of BS.
Right. No, I agree. I think the thing with Shama Sawant too is that she's very much focused on the workers, right? She was very much for fighting against like Amazon, fighting for unions. She's there with the activists. Like, that's the thing. Like, she's one of those people that she got into office, but she didn't stop her work on the ground. And I think part of that is a little bit easier to do when you're in local politics. I think for some reason, when people go to like Congress or Senate, they lose that part that they had. And I think there's different reasons for that. But I think the thing with her is that if we could take socialist alternative and make it into something like, for example, like a lot of people have said, like, socialist alternative, like, why isn't that a party? Why isn't that? We don't have that here in the United States. We don't have a socialist party. Like, you go to other countries, they have like a socialist party, they have a conservative party, they have the liberal, they have the progressives, they have so many different parties. And we don't even have a worker party like in this country. So I think,
and if you notice, oh no, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think the model that she's following, I think that's something that people should be looking at. And a lot of people, I'll be honest with you, a lot of people did not even cover Shama Sawant's recall. Didn't even talk about it. I talked about it multiple times on the show, and Socialist Alternative, they came on here multiple times to talk about it. And I had to ask myself that question, like, why are more people not covering this? Like, I know Bree covered it, but I had to ask, like, this is a big deal. Like, I know it's not, a representative position. I know it's not a senator position. She's not in DC. And I think that's the reason why some people overlooked it, because it's local politics. But But then I say that, but then there was so much focus on India Walton's race, you know? But again, she was running through the Democratic Party. So I think a big part of that was the fact that people chose to ignore it because she was not running through the Democratic Party. She didn't follow that path.
Right. You have a little bit of echo for some reason.
Oh, I do? Let me make sure everything's muted.
Yeah, I'm not sure why.
Do I have an echo
But-
now?
Yeah, you do. You still do a little bit. I'm not sure. It must be the app, I think.
Oh, I think I know why. Okay, how about now? Any echo now?
Yeah, you still have it a little bit. Yeah, you do. I'm not sure why. But I'll just say this. I don't think I have an echo right now, so I should be okay. I agree with you. She was not covered by very few people cover her this last run, or not her recall. But that was by design. I'm pretty sure she was not covered. Oh, geez. Okay.
Oh, Eric, I think the Rockfin stream, I think we need to mute that. The one that has the R at the bottom. I think we need to mute that one. Okay, there we go. Oh, Eric, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, so someone said something in the chat. I think this is really important. Sabby, India Walton did not get real union endorsements because she used a non-union print company and she supported charter schools. Buffalo, New York is a huge union town. So bad choices from India, FYI. Interesting.
Sabby, I think the other thing with regarding Kshama is basically that she's not getting any coverage. I am very sure that the powers that be are going to try to diminish her. They're going to try to look to do anything to bring her down in the coming times, because she's definitely the person to be on the look for. She also does multi-purpose strategies. Like during that interview, she was basically saying how Bernie Sanders and AOC could be co-sponsoring policies that they could tackle and go kind of after the same thing from different ways to have a united forefront and then sort of push the envelope with the Democrats, which they're not doing. But the fact that she had this strategy, to me, was like, wow, she's thinking multi-purposely on how to bring about change. You never hear almost anyone say anything like that. And if she even had a little bit more coverage from, say, the bigger mainstream media sort of channels, I think she's going to blow up. Meaning, her profile is going to elevate because I don't think a lot of people know about her. We do here in this ecosystem that we talk about, that we get together with you and so forth. But I don't think like a regular person probably hasn't even heard of her. But if you listen to her, she's kind of like RBN. Once you hear her talk, man, it's like she changes everything. Once you listen to her, you're like, what? Did she just say what she just said? Can we really do what she's saying? And to me, that's why, someone like her can really spark a lot of people's minds to do more than what we're doing today.
I agree. Do I sound okay now?
You still have the echo. But I'm not going to take up more of your time. Maybe the next caller maybe the echo will end then. But thank you, Sabby. I really appreciate you guys doing the summit this week with RBN and your coverage this week. Thank you so much.
Awesome. I'm going to grab my headphones. Eric, give me just a second. I'm going to grab my headphones.
Okay.
This is where we need to have Steph in here, where Jimmy says, "Go to a card." We should probably do a "We'll be right back" card. Yeah, the echo was coming in on the on the call-in app, so we're working on it.
Still coming in here.
I wonder if I'm echoing here.
Yeah, you are.
Listen in on that. Let's see. Testing 1, 2, 3. Test. Ooh, I'm echoing too. All right. It's got to be something on this end.
Okay. So I put in my headphones.
All right, I got it fixed. It was something on my end.
Oh, okay.
It's fixed now, Sabby.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So, yeah, I agree with you. Like, we got to do something different. I'm going to go to the next caller. Thanks so much, Eric.
Thank you, Sabby. Take care.
All righty. Okay, Kiana, you're the next caller.
Hi. Thanks for taking the time. So I definitely agree with the idea of not running through the Democratic Party. Especially, well, so I'm gonna find this out because what's going on is at the local level, we have a slate and considers of like progressive Democrats in our county. So, and we're trying to get onto like their central committee, and it's more of like changing things from the inside kind of thing, and just yeah, all that. But same time, I just have this feeling like running independent even at that level. Well, but there's one thing that I know for sure is definitely not run through the Democratic Party at the federal level. That's all I know. But well, I hope at the local level it's going to be easier.
Yeah, and I want people to know there are a lot of like for the Green Party, they actually have a lot of local positions. And I wish people would talk about that a little bit more. Like, yes, like maybe on the federal level, the Green Party hasn't been as successful. But when it comes to the local positions, they actually do pretty well. And we don't hear about that a lot.
Yeah, wow. Well, I can look into the Green Party in my state, so and another thing I asked in the chat, because you did say that there were no socialist parties, and what came to my mind, isn't there a party called the Bread and Roses, or are they something different?
I've never heard of that, but I mean, like, for example, parties that are on the ballot. So, like, for example, like for people that go to vote, I don't see a socialist party on the ballot. And I think, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be a socialist party, but if we had some type of party for the workers, something that like really fought for like laborers of this country, I think that would particularly do really well, especially considering you had so many employees go on strike the past year and a half.
Oh, yeah.
I think something like that would do really well.
Absolutely. And I also agree. Shama Sawant definitely keep up her like activism even when in office, and hopefully me and everyone on the slate will do the same thing. Like, for example, helping hotel workers that have not been called back on to their work during the pandemic. So that's one of the things that I'm looking to do. And as for myself, expand, I don't know, community gardens, for example.
Yes. Phenomenal Mysticism just said there's a political party called the Socialist Party USA, but their ballot access is very limited to only a few states. Good to know. Thank you,
Oof.
Phenomenal Mysticism.
I'll look into that later. Thanks.
Thanks so much for calling in. I'm going to go to the next caller, and that is Greg Bruce. You're on the mic.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So the question is, should she run she should not run the Democratic Party. Progressives should follow her model. I mean, if anyone who wants to actually make a change should not run in the Democratic Party. It's been demonstrated that third-party candidates and independent candidates can win at the local level. And what I think that can do is, I know that we need to change things both at the local and national level. But in some ways, local stuff kind of impacts us, our daily lives more. But even at a national level, the thing is that what you have currently is, oh, my voice is echoing back at me.
It's
Anyway.
not echoing here, so.
All right, well, whatever. Let's stop doing it now. So I think what you see happening now is, even though, so you have a progressive Democrat city councilor, they're still in the Democratic Party. So if they happen to interact with people at a higher level, at the state level, or in the U.S. Congress, they can be like, well, I have some connections at the DNC. You want to help your career? Well, why don't you kind of push these policies that kind of suit my agenda? So I think that the Democratic Party's influence trickles all the way down. So the more we can, even at the lowest level, get alternatives to the Democratic Party in place, it weakens the Democratic Party, which is something I think we all want. So in short, I do think that the model of not running through the Democratic Party is, I think that's the good way to go.
Yeah, I want to make the comparison to education. For those of you who are educators out there, you may identify with this. A lot of educators became educators because they really wanted to make a difference. And for those of us that chose to teach in schools that were underperforming, I hate using that expression, but that's what they're called, underperforming schools, we really wanted to go into those schools and make a difference. Oftentimes, what teachers will find is that when you get into those schools, they don't really want you to make a difference. And by they, I mean the administrators, the principal, the school board. They want you to continue doing what all the other teachers have been doing. They don't want you to come in and try to reinvent curriculum, try to get the kids excited and motivated. They don't want you to do that. And there was a movie about that, which was based on a true story. It was called The Freedom Riders. I don't know if everyone has seen that movie. If you haven't, I suggest you check it out. Also, Dangerous Minds is another good example, also based on true events. And it's true what they say in those movies, that when the people who come in that really want to make a difference, you have to last for a certain amount of time if the school has a union. So, for example, in Boston, I think you have to teach for like 3 years before you can join the teachers union here. What they'll often do, the really good teachers that come in and start to help the students that are struggling and start to try to change things on the inside from within that inside game, a lot of times they're not brought back the next year. Why is that? Because they don't really want you to make a difference. They want you to really just come in, do the status quo, keep things the way that they are. So even though it's their classroom, it doesn't matter, because the administrators, the people above them, are the ones that really make the decisions. And this is why a lot of times you'll see good teachers leave, because they're not able to really give their full potential and to be creative and implement some kind of change. I look at this the same way with the Democratic Party, with the two-party system. They don't really want someone to come in there and change anything. They like things just the way that they are. And they want you to come in and follow the status quo and walk the line. And anyone who tries to go against the grain, they're going to try to find a way to push them out.
So, yeah, 100% agree. So we need to fight the hard path, which is not through the Democratic Party. They say it's the only path. No, it's just it's what seems to be the only path, but we need to walk the hard path. So that's all I got for now.
All right. Thanks so much for calling in. I'm going to go to the next caller, and this is Lance. You're on the mic.
How you doing, Sabby? Good to talk to you.
Hello.
Hello. Got cut off last time when I was giving you my draft Jimmy Carter pitch, but I got to talk to you. I actually was the last caller with Brianna Joy Gray. Wonderful. And at the end, she's like, yeah, great, big back and forth. There were so many like long conversations she had because it was a great call. She was really enthused about it all, great. And yeah, I'll get your thought next time on who you think is the up and coming next generation of Democrat, progressives. And I was going to say, yeah, I'll give her the Jimmy Carter spiel next time. But anyway, but multi-parties, you hit a great point. Back to topic about multi-parties in the EU and not, let AOC and the squad off the hook. But when forced to vote and all that stuff was happening, it did look like a little bit of overkill. Like, am I sure these guys aren't, even the ones I love, I won't mention names, but not that I'm famous enough that it would matter if I did, but, a little bit about click. And I thought, yes, forced to vote, absolutely. And so others like Chomsky eventually, of course, and then Richard Wolff. And he said, who of course could just take things that everybody already knows and put it together and connect the dots in a way that's just so brilliant. And Professor Wolff said, in Europe, you don't have like all on one group of progressives. You have right wing, left wing, and everything in between, half a dozen parties, as you were suggesting. So in a sense, AOC couldn't be, and I don't say that there aren't rock star type of, popular political figures in Europe. They're not all completely all just sober-minded, doing everything by the book and intelligent, every voter, but yeah, just generally, they're just not. It's not. You're not going to have that. You're not going to have one or two people because there's too many parties. You're not going to schmooze enough people of the general population because, and here's the other point I think to bring up a new point is the coalitions themselves will keep you in line because if you have 18%, 15%, and then somebody else has 28%, but they need a coalition, you're not gonna screw it up. You're gonna have to be a little more not pure, but you know what I mean. You're gonna be held accountable by your own coalition because they don't want to lose that 18%, and that gives them clout. So it isn't like all or nothing, where you've got to go always to the mishy-mushy middle, whatever that is, a little bit left, a little bit right. No, we're gonna be the Marxists. We're gonna be the socialists. We're gonna be the anti-immigrant if it's on the right, or there's some center-left part, whatever. You know what I mean? But there's just too many reasons for them having to work together that it forces, and because you can see results, of course, by saying, I'm going to maybe vote for this coalition, that coalition, it might shift, but it keeps the, I think it keeps the politicians in line. AOC didn't have to answer anybody. And something I mentioned to her, to you guys, is that I honestly think that the $100 small, I'll stop with this, I could go on for minutes, but I think that this whole small dollar donation, $100 donation thing, I call it the Blob Lobby. And I thought it was unintended consequence. But I almost think because there's some good progressive lobbies, right? There's the old folks lobby. I'm not thrilled with AARP. I'm not thrilled with the teachers union, but it does give a voice to unions. There's some good, there's let's say lobbyists that deal with progressives. I think environmental is one of my favorites in a sense. They're winning in court. They're a pretty strong lobby in Washington. So all the lobbies aren't just corporate assholes, But so that said, that's what they do with their money. And that's why bundlers bundle their money. That's why the politicians like it; they get more money, but the people have more clout. So just like on your point, tangential to your point, Sabby, about $100 million. Wow, how much like direct aid to people could that do? Or 50 million, 50 whatever. But I mean, if you had $100 times a million people, there's nothing tied to any of that $100. It's just amorphous money. You might as well not hit John Doe and Jane Doe on every one, because you're not going to be owed anything specifically. It's just you're giving $100 for the general progressive socialist / slate. But if 100 people times 1,000 said, "Hey, we're going to be $100 donators, but here's this issue," and say, okay, this 100,000 is for the people that say we want minimum $15 minimum wage. Then another 1,000 people who agree with that, but will say, this one is for universal health care. 100,000, people donating a chunk for that issue. You know what I'm saying, Sab? that would mean a lot more than 1 million people with just $100 each of just individual people.
But what would happen if we just all stopped donating to politicians? Just as
Absolutely.
a theory, like just
Yeah.
a theory. Like, what
That's
happens
why
if
I
we
agree
just
with this one.
stop?
Yep. I totally agree. You know, I mean, but if people are going to do it when you're going to get something for it. It's otherwise it's just feel good money. It's like Black Lives Matter money, and that's why 90 million went bazoo, because nobody followed it up with, hey, wait a minute, where's this money going? You know, there's a guy Geldof. Do you remember him from the Good Rats, whatever they were called? And he did the Food for Africa, where he went and did like fundraisers. Like there was Farm Aid. Remember, there was the ones that Willie Nelson did, and there's been other ones. This was for when there was a huge, like starvation thing going on in, I think, Ethiopia at the time. And Bob
Yep.
Geldof said, you know something? Once he got into that world, he said, this money goes to really bad people. And so he was one of the first that said, you know what? I myself, he really did. He kind of half retired. He didn't retire, but he said, I got to oversee this. And then he got really good people. We're going to make sure we're going to buy the trucks. We're going to make sure that we don't get killed with the gas market, black market gas, because it's free money from government donate. You know what I mean? And he followed it from every nickel and where it went. So it wasn't just, oh yeah, here's some good money for a cause. And I'll leave, so again, I could go on and on, but the NGOs, like some of these do-gooder groups, whether it's Salvation Army and the Red Cross, with the empty trucks just for show, because their money's just all grift too. So all of this money, like you're saying, it's not just politicians, but it's anything corporate, anything establishment. They're all assholes. We got to give locally, do everything locally, do it with people where where that money's going to go, et cetera. But yeah, obviously you have other callers and, that are just as interesting as me. So I'll stop there and maybe call back and get in the queue again or something. But
Awesome.
can I just say one last thing about third parties, and I'll stop. Jill Stein, nice little back and forth. I was the last caller on this show too. I said to somebody where they said, good job. It was with Jordan Cheriton, who I like a lot, but he's a duopolist too. And I said, third parties, if it was realistic, and I've already talked about how third parties through history have done, amazing things, but Jill Stein was on the ballot, and she's such a credible. I like Howie Hawkins. We have mutual friends. He doesn't know me by name. We've been in the same company. Some of his best guys that are like his closest guys that help him with elections are good friends of mine, et cetera, et cetera. I like the guy, but he's not going to be the president. He's not going to be a candidate for president legitimately. He's just not. He would be great in Senate and Congress. He could, because he's super smart and he could do that stuff, but he's not going to be president. I think Congress more than Senate, but Jill Stein definitely. She's on the ballot, or was in 2016, in 46 or 48 states. So,
Yep.
it goes back to what Nader said. I said, what do you think would happen, Jordan, if you, like Horton Hears the Who, if every progressive, okay, maybe not all, not just Jimmy Dore, people you just, and you, and the Squad, and Marianne Williamson, all the Breaking Point, all the people, the Vanguard, everybody on the left. What if in 2016, if it existed, that he could all said, yes, Jill Stein, she's on the ballot in 48 states, and all them tens of millions of AOC, tens of millions of all these other people, Jill Stein could very well be president if we did that. He didn't know what to say, actually.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like, she was on the ballot in 48 states. But yet, for some reason, people thought it was better to vote for Hillary Clinton. People thought that Hillary Clinton was the better candidate, and she wasn't. And then some people didn't know Jill Stein was running because of mainstream media blockout. Unfortunately, that's a big part of it. And I think that's where independent media is supposed to come in, though, and pick those people up. We shouldn't just talk about candidates that are running for the Democratic Party that are progressives. We should also talk about these candidates that are third party and that are independent. We should be picking for people to say, well, people don't know about them, but people don't know about them because they're not given a big platform. So if you have a large platform, bring them on, and then more people will know about them.
See, that's the problem. Okay, that's why these people are all duopoly. This is, and Sabby, you've helped peel even like whatever layers could ever possibly be left. Even as I get not so much that my politics gets further and further left, but my cynicism, realism of what's going on in the Democrats, with the left, with progressives, etc. It's just such all a grift, like the MPP and all that. Is the idea of just how just what you were saying. Oh gosh, I just lost the thought for a second. But how
Oh no, Lance.
I know, right? Old fart, old folks moment, Alzheimer's moment. But just that.
Okay. All right. I think you're cutting out,
I'll
Lance.
get back in. There's only a couple callers, so I'm going to get back in queue and I'll remember it.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. I'm going to the next caller who is Farat. You're on the mic. Just got to unmute.
Oh, Fractal.
Fracto, sorry.
Yeah, nice to talk to you again, Sabby.
Welcome back.
Yes. So, I think I had about 3 things I wanted to hit. One, thanks for doing the show. I didn't get to catch it, unfortunately, because I was spending time with my dad, but I knew it was good because you've talked about Shama before, and I've seen all the interviews. I just want to say, I think first that Sharma is the standard bearer of what I was saying the other night on Brianna's Joy Grace call-in. Lance was there, and he was great on that one. And so was William and all the other people who are here that were on that one. And what I said was, I kind of told a story about how I was working for a banquet company, and there was this middle-aged white lady that was real cool, very anti-racist. But she made a comment about how, sometimes, people of color and black people, we can say things that may, repel people. And there's truth in that. I'm sure there's a lot of resentment that some black people have. But I had to turn to her and check her and say, as much as that may be true, you don't need me to make you comfortable to do the right thing. Because out of the 400 plus years that black people have been oppressed, no one has ever made us feel comfortable to do the right thing. And no one ever believed in us. No one believed in Chris Smalls and what he was doing. And I'm sure nobody believed in Sharma. So she's an example of, you don't need me to believe in you. And what made Bernie Sanders so have the jagged edge that he had was the fact that for 40 years, no one knew who he was, and he was just doing the right thing when no one knew who he was, nor believed in him, and he didn't need people to give him money or believe him in order for him to stand for what's right. So that is what Shama represents, and I hope that everyone follows that lead. I do know that Iramio Sinfrimpog, if you still talk to him, he wants to interview her. I think that would be a great interview by him because he asks politicians very interesting political, philosophical questions. So he is asking people to reach out if anyone has contact. The second thing I wanted to mention was with Chris Smalls, if you still talk to him, no one has talked about this as far as I know, but in this contract negotiation, I'm really hoping that something in the contract hedges against automation, because that's where this is going to go. If everybody starts unionizing their work, unionizing their workplace, they're going to start really ramping up these robots and machines to replace people. And we need to hedge against that until we get some type of policy. So I just wanted to put that in your ear if you still talk to Chris Smalls, but that needs to be definitely another thing added into that contract, non-negotiable. Everything else he's asking for, I think, is wonderful. $30 an hour, all of that. But I wanted your thoughts on that before I go to my third thing.
Oh my gosh, you bring up such a great point. I didn't think about that, but you're right in reference to automation. They could do that, right? Because they could sign like Amazon could agree to that contract, and if there's nothing in that contract about automation, they could still do that.
Yeah, like that is one of the things I care about is technology and how it's going to it's already being used to violate our civil rights, are what I like to call our essential rights. Because as Ivy said, if you say human rights, even though we know what it means, human is part of nature. Nature doesn't care about one's will, especially human nature. So if a tiger is around you, you say, hey, that's my arm, it's right to my arm. Who is a tiger operating on your terms or you operating on the tiger's terms? So, but nonetheless, it's just violating our rights altogether, especially with what they're doing with censorship through corporations and the government combined. So and also speaking of which, I just please put that in his ear. I guess I have the third thing I would say kind of goes into the third parties. I'm gonna just put this out there when it comes to MPP. I wish that the whole issues with MPP that they were as transparent as Jimmy Dore was about his issues with TYT and Anarchist Variant. Because, and I'm not saying one way or another, I just wish that that transparency was there when it comes to the sexual assault stuff. And I wish that MPP and all the players involved were as transparent about the racist terms being used and whatnot, just as, got to give credit where credit is due, at the time Cenk Uygur was when it came to the Justice Democrats. And if it comes down to it, for the sake of the movement, it's like, is it about the person and the people leading it, or is it about the movement? And I get the whole like having money where you trust, but it's like, should it not be democratic in a trust fund or something? So that way it doesn't look like nepotism. That's just my questions there. But with third parties though, I really think that one, someone said it on, I think on Brianna's show the other day, or it was somewhere else. And they said that basically the Democratic Party has set the precedent for running as an independent against a Democratic nominee after the primary is over, and they did that with India World. I mean, literally, the guy spent money to get stamps for his name to do a write-in campaign. So if it's okay for them, you know, there's no reason. And that's why they were saying it's no reason that Nina Turner shouldn't run third party in a district where it's very heavily blue, if it is, or anybody for the matter at this point. But I want us to really live in reality here about, let's say Bernie Sanders did win the nomination in 2020, and, you know, let's say he was about to beat Trump. Please believe, as Just Ventura said, both parties would come against him. And what Trump revealed to us all, whether he meant it or not, is the way that you can circumvent the people with an election. Because please believe, if Bernie Sanders won, you would have had state legislators coming out and revoking those electors for the sake of the system that they want to uphold. So we must focus on our local elections, must focus on our state elections. And that is where the third party power is. Because, and I will go back one more time to Breonna Joy Gray and Virgil, Texas. Once January 6th happened, they said something that I'll never forget. That the only reason that the oligarchy did not back those protesters is because they did not need Trump anymore. They got their money, they got what they wanted, and he was a nuisance. And the fact that Jim Clyburn boasted about the fact that George W. Bush, Mr. Weapons of Mass Destruction, said, if it wasn't for you making sure Biden got elected, we might be here today, because only Biden could have beat Trump and gotten here. That says a lot to me.
Yeah, those are all good points. And I think you're right. And I thought about this at the time, too, that the Democratic Party would have rather had Trump win again than Bernie Sanders win. But I say that, but also keeping in mind that the DNC was never going to let Bernie Sanders be the nominee. They were already talking about changing the rules during the debates. So they were already headed in that direction. They were never going to let him be the nominee. And I wish I would have realized that sooner, and then I wouldn't have donated so much money to Bernie Sanders. So
but let's just say if the people truly overran and you couldn't deny it, that's where that would have gone, though. The state legislators, and it's legal. It is a legal way to overturn an election. It's just that Trump didn't have the backing that he really wanted, but he had a legal way to do it. And so we need to keep that in mind. Your state legislators are very important. And like I said, we really need to start pushing. Maybe there are a few exceptional on the state level, but with this $33 billion they just all gave, sorry. In 2022, just about on the federal level, you know, no red or blue will do. And we really need to start pushing that on the ground level with our people. I think that's why they're not doing a voting rights bill, because 50% of the country, when surveyed, says I'm independent, and only 25% says Democrat or Republican. So even though they make it harder for third parties with that poison pill, the fact that they secure the vote and the fact that somebody could put a stamp or a write-in, they're scared. They're scared. And as much as Chris just says that they need to be scared of us, yeah, they're scared of us, but I don't think they're scared of us in a way to respect us. There's a difference between being fearing and respecting somebody. They don't respect the people. They do things against our name, like these wars.
Yeah. So, you're right. No, it's a good point.
Do you know? I don't know. I haven't watched all y'all stuff, but have y'all done anything about the Africans in Ukraine that are stuck there and being held hostage by these Nazis?
I think we did. I know I covered.
In the very beginning, probably.
Yeah, I covered part of that and about the volunteers.
Oh,
With
in
the
the Peace Corps.
Peace
Yeah,
Corps. Yeah, I covered that, and then I
my,
think Nick talked about that as well about the
yeah.
hostages.
My wife and I read that together. We were like, "Oh wow!" Like the Peace
Oh
Corps
yeah.
website. So
Hmm.
I think we just need to lift that up more. I think the one of the ways we can try to get an anti-war message out here is like, how can these Democrats say they're for civil rights and yet they're just desecrating a civil rights legend who, yes, had an alleged and with evidence, but alleged sexual case, but never got to really have a fair shot like the guy from Minnesota who was a senator. Can't remember his name right now. He at least had a hearing, and then they forced him out to make sure that Roy Moore didn't get in there back in 2018. But he wrote the bill about these guys, and President Obama followed that. I mean, his President Obama's position is now the restraint position. He didn't do this like they wanted 8 years ago, Biden and all of them. So if we can juxtapose, like, how can you be on civil rights when you're going against the bill of a civil rights person, and you got Africans over there being held hostage while they're fighting, while these Nazis are fighting nuclear superpower? I mean, it's just absurd. And I think that's one of the ways we can create leverage in our messaging that maybe we have left until they cancel you and take your PayPal away. But,
I
um,
know,
but,
because we can't even really talk about it now. Like we can't even really
but,
talk because like now they're just like banning people who talk about it.
and then Mayorkas is like, no, we're going to come after people. They got a lady who yodels and sings that's on TikTok that's coming after people. I mean, it's ridiculous. I saw Jimmy's show today and I'm just like, wow. And I genuinely believe like that's the only leverage we have there, because you can't say you're for civil rights when the person who was a civil rights legend made sure Rosa Parks didn't get murked out here, like wrote the bill on these people and was correct. I mean, Kim Iverson's whole radar about a Switzerland NATO analyst who was invested in NATO told the truth that 40% of the Ukrainian army was the Azov battalion and other white nationalist groups, because all the Russian speaking people in the Ukrainian army were giving the weapons to Ukraine, not Russia. And then 90% of them didn't show up for the call when the National Guard would say, come up arms, they would just quit. Like it just breaks the whole narrative. So I think, once again, Black people, we can save the world in this whole situation, because they're playing footsies with World War III and nuclear warfare at this point. So yeah, but that's all I had to say. I would check out Dr. West's thing with one of the Black Peace Corps members when this thing happened. I don't know if you saw that live stream when they were talking about what was going on with our African brothers, but yeah, we need to kill
I'll
a
check it
collective
out.
of people. Yeah, they were saying
Awesome.
hashtag stop the war, stop the racism. So
I'll check it
yeah,
out.
yeah,
All
look it
right.
up. It was about a month ago. Thank you though. Appreciate you.
Thanks so much. All right, I'm going to go to the next caller, and that is Jonathan.
Hey, Sabs, how are you doing?
Hello, welcome back.
Hey, thank you so much. Just want to bring up some key points about the question for tonight. I would definitely say that Kshama's her model for third party. I mean, yes, I definitely say it's definitely a model that progressives can use. I think that it does. I would say it's a model. So looking at it, I would say absolutely. For those who call themselves progressive, who actually are progressives, of course, not progressive by name only. Just one thing I want to bring up. We saw in the interview that she talked about her recall election. I don't know if everyone remembers this, but her recall election was very unique. The elections for Seattle, the mayoral election was November the 2nd. Her recall election was December the 7th. That was intentional. And it was really weird that they would actually do that, because the purpose behind that was they're trying to get, because they knew that the turnout would be low. So when she says that they went out and they worked, they had to work hard. Actually, before the recall election, they actually were trying to petition for them to withdraw the recall. They fought in the courts. Like, this was a battle. So when she says we had to fight, she means they really had to fight. And as far as the social alternative party, one thing that I was just listening to the interview she did with Breonna Joy Gray, I believe it was 2 weeks ago. And in that party, they have, how can I say, check safes. So in other words, not so they do things so they're not co-opted by the Democratic Party or influenced by big money. So they can vote each members out. I think they have a majority. If a majority votes, and they have to go to the board that's of the social alternative, and if things happen, then that person can be removed. So, and the reason why I think that question was brought up is because we saw with the DSA where you have that they were that they endorsed people like AOC and Jamal Bowman, and now we see where they're going. So Brown was like, okay, how do we know that the social alternative doesn't fall in that direction? And because one thing I love about Kshama is that she's very transparent, and and you can tell that she's very authentic, and she never backs down from a hard question. So she said, as far as the social alternative goes, this is how we roll things, this is how we do things. And that's something that as a third party you would have to have, because I, just like yourself, question electoral politics. Just like you, I went out and voted for Obama for 2008. I was prideful, happy. I'm like, yeah, first black president, he's progressive, all that stuff. 2012, I did vote for him out of fear. And I said to myself, I will never do that again. So needless to say, I did not vote for Hillary in 2016. But also, India Walton, one thing I did like about her campaign is that it showed that the whole model, vote blue no matter who, doesn't matter at all.
Yeah,
we can throw that theory out the door, because we saw that even though she won the Democratic primary, her challenger came back. He went on a third party ticket. I forgot it was some sort of name they gave their ticket, but like you said, he was a write-in candidate. And I remember India Walton saying when she was at the debate, she said, "I don't know why I'm here. I won my primary. Why am I here debating?" And it was ridiculous. And somebody from the Democratic Party, I believe in the state of New York, I know Roger Meadows will probably correct me on this, did say, listen, this guy's no longer Democrat. He should no longer, I think he had like a position in the Democratic Party in New York. And they said, listen, he's no longer a Democrat. He ran as a non-Democrat. He should no longer hold a position in the party, but he still does after running third party. So it's both blue no matter who. You know, we can scrap that whole idea, because India Walton was a clear indication that doesn't work. And also, one more thing. You said that you talking about educators. You know, I'm an educator, and I teach your favorite subject, math. And and I think you're looking for the right words to use when it comes to the type of schools. I would, if you want to use this verbiage, that's fine. If not, I teach what is called a Title I school. And for those who don't know what Title I is, I know you know what that is, Sab, but those are for schools in which students come from low-income families that make up at least 40% of the enrollment. So we get funding outside of what you would get normal funding from real estate taxes, because in the city that I teach in, only 20% of the residents actually own their homes. And so the rest of them are renters. And that's pretty standard. But I will say this, and I'm in my third year teaching, I've noticed that they do want people to come in to make a change. They actually do want those teachers. The problem is they want us to make a change with inside the system.
There you go.
Does not work at all. Like,
nope.
I had, keep in mind that I'm much older, but when I was in high school, this was before Bush became president. So there was No Child Left Behind. After No Child Left Behind, it was like, just get them in, get them a diploma, and get them out. We don't care.
Yep.
So I got to deal with kids that I'm like, we are sending you into a world that you're not even prepared for. You can't even do third grade math, but you have a high school diploma. And they want us to talk about white supremacy and dismantling the the corporate structure and go out there and be change agents. I'm like, some of these kids can't even read past the third grade level. How in the hell are they going to make some type of change? And then we get them to college and they get into debt. They realize college isn't for them. Then they have student loans. They have to take. It's like a continuous cycle. So I'm saying, from my perspective, yes, they want change, but you can't change a system. You can't make change with inside the system if the system itself has not changed. The system is designed for the students to fail. We know that the system is designed for them to fail. And the city that I teach in, they just cut the budget again for education. So it's like, okay, we have to get more students in. So that's going to be more of an impact on education, because more students in the classroom leads to lower expectations when it comes to testing and grading, all that stuff. So we got more students coming in, because in order for us to break even, we got to get more students coming in, more students with IEPs that don't get the services that they need. It's a whole system, but they want us to, hey, let's read what's her name, Zamina Hammond, and how to create cultivating geniuses, and Dr. Goldie Muhammad. No, sorry, that's Dr. Goldie Muhammad, the wrong person. Do curriculums that are culture responsive. I'm like, I don't have the capacity, the time, nor the bandwidth to do all that stuff. Trying to dismantle the system within the system, but yet you're still saying, okay, do all this, but you still have to hit this goal. Yeah, I have to have this percentage of graduates. They have to have this amount of grades. We got to, yeah. So that's just from my perspective. And I'm sorry to talk so much, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true. You're right. Like it's almost impossible to change it from within the inside. Same thing with the political system too. It's like, how are you going to change a party that's owned by Wall Street, and Wall Street's calling the shots? Like, how are you going to? You got to get the money out first. That's what I was saying. Like, why isn't the focus getting money out of politics? Like, why isn't the focus on that? And you'd be surprised. And there's other numbers too I can show on my show another time, but you'd be surprised. Even some of these progressive candidates per se that said they only took grassroots donations, I have receipts that say otherwise. So it's just again, most people are not going to dig that deep. Most people aren't going to look that far. But I have receipts that show that some of these progressive candidates that said they only took grassroots donations are not telling the truth. And again, that goes back to the money. And that's why you need to get money out of politics. So that's a big part of it. But I'm going to go to the next caller, Jonathan. Thanks so much.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. Lance, since you already went, I'm going to go to Reggie because he hasn't spoken yet. All right, Reggie, you are on the mic.
Hey, how you doing? Actually, I've been watching. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Okay. I've been watching this and paying close attention all along, and including going back when the idea was that just as Democrats were going to come inside and then start cleaning things up from the inside, because that's the best way to do it, because tried to take over the party. Well, we know that they didn't take over the party. The party took them over. And some of them might have had good plans and good ideas, but we see where they've gone. And we see where they keep on going. They get absorbed by the machine. They become the machine. The only way that we're going to make headway on getting the two parties that both of them are together one way or another, the Republicans and the Democrats, as far as representing the money interest, the corporate interest, is for the people and the unions and the people that actually work to come together, just like the Amazon, strike, or not the strike, the Amazon union organization in New York and the Starbucks union organization. We need to support each other and the unions and the people who are in the trenches working, and we need to force them to line up with us. And for that, we need to support a separate route than going into a party. Or if you go into a party, I don't even know if you can do anything with either of the two parties from the inside. I hate to say it, it almost seems like you'd have a better chance making headway if you went through the Republican Party and try to force them into the populist direction because I don't see any populism being supported other than lame lip service from the Democrats right now. It's absolutely nothing. You know, you get promised and promised all the things they can do. They've always had the power to do it. They don't do it. Just like a Medicare for all in California, this could very easily be done. All they keep on saying, if you just get some more of us, then we can do it. If you still believe that, then you're just fooling yourself. It needs to be done like the Tea Party did with the Republicans. Is you go in there, you take no prisoners, you play spoiler and make them come to you to get anything. You know, make them so that let's be honest. We're going to come up to the midterms. The Democrats are going to get creamed by the Republicans, and it's not because the Republicans didn't do any good. It's because the Democrats did so much bad, and they essentially betrayed a lot of the workers, or at least we know that's been going on for quite a while. But it's now very difficult for anybody who's in the trenches. I mean, it's hard to believe anything they tell you about what they're going to do for you, no matter what you do, and line up and vote for them. They have never delivered, even when they had the opportunity to deliver. And the ones that were going to go in there and to take it over and actually start reforming it, they almost all either their true colors came out or they got corrupted. So I think that we have to take a third route and then align with whichever party will give us the best deal. Make them come to us for getting our support. Not give them support, not give any of them support unless there's something in it for us. That's how you negotiate a deal with people who do not live up to their side. Don't give them anything until they give it to you. Because they've already proved that no matter how much they say, well, if you do this for us, we'll make it up to you. You know, it's the checks, it's the check in the mail, baby. I'll still respect you in the morning type thing. It's not, they have done this over and over. And that's, my feeling on it is time to play a bit of hardball. Don't be mean or too obnoxious, but just be hard. Say, we're done. You're going to come to us. If you want any support, you have to give us something first. None of this will pay you later. That doesn't work anymore.
Well said, Reggie. Thanks so much for calling in. I'm going to go to the next caller.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Lance, you're back. And guys, Farak is going to be the last caller. I got to end a little bit earlier tonight. So Lance, you're on the mic.
Yes, thank you for letting me speak again. So whatever I'll say about being cynical and all that, it's a question of if this was what I was going to say, is the Democrats would rather lose. And that became apparent if you remember the Georgia election, which was only won by grassroots. To give Stacey Abrams the credit, I'm not a huge fan, and the other folks, it was on, grassroots on the ground, get out the vote. They didn't think they were going to win Georgia. And so it wasn't a question of like, wow, let's celebrate. But now that we have power, it was like they didn't want it. And they've done everything they could to undermine whatever progressive energy from day one and before, as far as Bernie Sanders and the progressives. One wonders, just to be brief, something else here is that we need a Turner. Now, for instance, Kshama Sawant, the last thing I was saying to Bree last night was Kshama Sawant for president. I don't know if she's eligible, but I mean, she's just the best. And and this isn't a direct analogy, but listening to, like, say, Kshama Sawant speak and Nina, it's like if I listen to Martin Luther King, it's like listening to Martin Luther King and then listening to Reverend Al. That's about the way I could describe how listening to, say, Kshama Sawant or Nina Turner. And I think she's just kind of a more refined version of like AOC, who could say 7 paragraphs of just why we can't quite ever have an idea of when and if and how we're going to get real stuff done. Always a little around the corner. Just give us enough money for the next time. And the movements are great, but then stuff happens behind closed doors. Nina Turner said the same thing that AOC and those guys did. Thank you. Every cycle we will, because she said this. Every cycle we're going to need your support, but then you got to let us just do our thing, behind closed doors. That no, you know. And like I said, I think that the other thing is that's why were they so afraid of Nina Turner? They know what she's about, and I think it had to come down to jealousy. I think there was a nice coalition of squad folks who said, they didn't want to be outshined because she's really good. I think that's part of it. That she was going to be in the way of AOC and some of these others to get to their eventual speakership. Do you think you know what I mean?
That's a good point. I mean, I do think AOC has high political ambitions.
I have to throw this in there. I think I'll bet you $1 to a donut, Sab, that if you were a fly on the wall, Nancy Pelosi came out of hard scrabble Baltimore politics as an Italian when it was like not, it was like kind of like being where she's from, where I'm Hispanic, but yes, not like the old days where we were off the boat Italian, but Nancy Pelosi still, right, Italian. I promise you, Pelosi painted a picture and said, "You're me. You're the young person of, color, marginal group, and you can work your way through the system, and you'll be speakers today if you just spend 20 years, because I was that progressive young person." I promise you that's what she did. She painted a picture of that you could be like me and just walk in my footsteps someday. I know she did. I guarantee it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's what I say. Bernie himself, I'm sorry to say, Bernie, but yep, and AOC and Nina and all these people, because she's not really a threat in any way, because what she's about, just with jealousy. They're what I call prog whisperers. Just come out, just say just enough, make just the right tweets, go to after the fact, just enough union rallies, and I think guarantee that they're going to come out more and more, because otherwise they know that Chris Small is going to call them out. He said, "Look, if they want to jump on board, fine. They better be in for the long haul. I'm not going to let them jump on the bandwagon, do a bunch of tweets, and then everybody's going to give them money again." So he's going to call them out and say, "Okay, guys, where are you for the next rally?" And say, "Uh-oh," you know what I mean? So he said that already. So they're going to be on board with him. I think they're going to have to be, because their feet were put to the fire. God, do we need any more evidence of? They don't do it till you make them. Then they'll do it. Then they'll jump to your team. Hello, we're not listening to big band jazz anymore. I love my folks, but I'm into rock and roll, baby. I want the Beatles. Frank Sinatra can go, do another retirement tour. You know what I mean? It's like, now they have to play to their tune, and there it is, right? We talk about it's a zero-sum game. It's all about the haves and the have-nots, as the great late Mort Saul said. It's all about, at the end of the day, with other marginal differences. And listen to Richard Wolff say this: it's about profit and wages. And every penny of wage you get is a penny less they get in profit. There's no math that's going to change that in the capitalist system. And the penny you fight for now, they'll take 2 cents tomorrow if you don't keep fighting for it, And so it's like, you got to make them jump to your tune. You're not going to have a better version of, sappy, excuse me, Michael Bolton. No, we're playing some new avant-garde jazz here. And if you don't get hip to the slip, man, forget about it. We're going to leave you behind, So if you're not going to get down on board, to get out of the way. And this is not what's happening on the left. And these people are all sellouts, because they're not dumb people. I don't care. I'm sorry. All the break pushers, all these duopolists, no, they're all sellouts, and they all like their little fiefdom. And like you said this so many times, like I've said, you've always opened up more things that, is that these people are comfortable. They're not suffering. And it's gone from, okay, fine. Not everybody's a movement person in the streets. Okay, fine. But now you're on independent media. Well, now you can have all these people on. And I'll leave with this, right? So, and it's going off on a tangent, but like you're talking about the left and getting everybody on board. Breaking points. Yeah, I still like them. And I'm like everybody else. I've seen them slip. We're going to be new now. You know what I think happened when they went from the Hill to their own thing, among other things? They realized that they don't have the Hill legal department if they go over a line where it isn't just a nasty call, but if there's something real happening. They got to pay their own way now. They're like on their own that way too. So I think they're being more conservative or less independent, or whatever you want to call it. Because I don't think that so-called independence. It's like saying, if you're a freelance writer on your own versus work for the New York Times, all of a sudden you don't have their legal department anymore. You got to hire your own, like Steven Donziger had to do. You know what I mean?
Well, Lance, thanks so much for calling on. Thanks so much. I want to get to the next caller.
Thank you. Bye.
Yep. All righty. All right, guys. So as I mentioned, Fract is going to be the last caller. Willem, just letting you know that because I see you in the calling queue. All right. Fract, you're on the mic.
Thanks. I will try to make this quick, since you give me a second chance, because I like Will. Shout out to Lance, actually, for that last point, because I was wondering about breaking points too. I wanted to agree with you on the teaching thing. First and foremost, my godmother has been a principal, an administrator, and a teacher, and she can't stand to talk about her job anymore. She says the exact same things. So I feel you on that. And I've been a substitute teacher myself before, so I understand. I did want to talk about the money and politics part. I think we need to think a little deeper. How did the money in politics get there in the first place? To where we would have this system of not having a system of accountability. Because the money is just a means of prestige, which is what classism, racism is, as Iremy has pointed out. It's the point of saying I'm better than you. So I think we have to really think about, even if you get the money out, well, how'd the money get in the first place? It wasn't the money that was the issue. It was what the money was used for. And it's a people issue. So I think we have to really look at who we're electing. I do think Shama should run. If anything, if Nina were to ever run, that might help her because they were like, we'd rather have her than have Shama. So I think it would be the best person to hedge against Kamala, because Black people overall just were not feeling her anyway. So yeah, and so you got a South Asian, yes, who's not Black, but actually stood with Black Lives Matter. Like I said, she didn't wait for people to believe in her or make her feel good. She went and did it herself. That's why she's the standard bearer. And that goes to the point, I think, of what Crystal Ball did say. If Bernie is still the leader of this movement, I think that's a failure on us. Because with Danny Glover, they did do the documentary on Eugene Debs. And that was his way of cutting the movement loose respectfully. He informed people, if I can lead you somewhere, I can lead you out of somewhere. You don't need a leader. Think for yourself. Democracy works. That's the best thing he ever did after he stepped down from the race. I will give him that credit. But that is on us if Bernie's still the only person that could run, and it's just not going to work for various reasons that you had people on the call the other night. So lastly, I did want to ask, do you believe that if Trump was in office, we wouldn't be in this war right now?
Probably not. Probably not. I don't think that was I don't think that was something that he wanted. I could be wrong, but probably not. I thought the impression that I received is that he was actually trying to smooth things over with Putin. That was the impression that I got. Again, I don't know what went on behind closed doors, but the impression that I got is that he was not trying to go down that road. But
right. So this is why I brought this up. I think, reasonably speaking, he had anti-war instincts. Don't like the guy, didn't vote for him, wouldn't vote for him. He had anti-war instincts. He wanted to get Afghanistan, got rolled on it. Let's remember that. He was against NATO, still paid them. And I think that you got to realize it was because of him undoing everything Obama did, including the gain of function research, and including funding those Nazis. That was under him. And let's not forget, all that Russiagate stuff made him hawkish towards Russia on the record. And because of Trump, nearly all nuclear deals with Russia were gone except for one, because of Putin. So if anything, he would have likely been pushed even more and a lot faster. Could Biden go with the no-fly zone? Yes. But I think Trump would have had more pressure on him. And we've seen what happens when a person who likes a lot of attention gets mad. All of us do, but especially certain people like Trump. He would have been more hawkish to prove that he wasn't a Putin puppet because everybody was on him because of it. So I think I just say this for us on the left that are anti-war, and even those anti-war right people, I get we're feeling desperate because of the near nuclear war that we're about to go into. Hopefully not, but it's very likely. It's just wishful thinking, and I think it would be more intelligent of us to really think about it. As much as we would like to think that he wouldn't do it, on the record, he was doing everything that led up to this point in the first place. And Biden just didn't change the funding of those neo-Nazis. So I just say that for our sake. I get it that we're trying to give credit where credit is due, and if we don't like the person, only say something true once, because it's about the truth. We could talk about the motives behind why they said the truth, whether they were saying the right things and doing the right things for the right reason, as Dr. King said when challenged about, if people leave the movement over the Vietnam War. But we gotta really, I would say, maybe as Nick would say, have some revolutionary discipline about this. So to all your friends, Jimmy, all of them, Kim, Iverson, we need to really think about this, because honestly, he had so much pressure on him. Biden, he just did the Afghanistan thing. So like he doesn't have that Russiagate pressure on him. That's why I think he's able to his credit, hold back a little bit and be like, no, we're not doing a no-fly zone. They pushed him to say genocide, but so let the lawyers decide it. But that's, hey, I respect what everybody believes, but a pastor once said, sometimes the blessing isn't what you get, what you didn't get. We didn't get Hillary Clinton. We didn't get Trump again. We didn't even get these progressives that have shown that they can be quite authoritarian and will weaponize even the Nazis, like Sam Cedar said. You use a weapon that's in the street. I'm like, oh, okay. So just saying, people have revealed themselves under stress.
Oh,
I think it would just be more. I think, especially with COVID, I think it would be more intelligent for us on the anti-war left, and then those on the anti-war right. Let's be honest about Trump. He had the instincts. He was right about calling out NATO. But when it came down to it, he rolled. He got rolled, just like sadly Bernie got rolled when it came to COVID. That's why a lot of Black people were like, I don't know about Bernie. I like him, but he might leave us for somebody else. So that's why I wanted to put that out there. And last but not least, please, 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 I know I'm being annoying, but please have a whole session with Chris Smalls and all of y'all at Fred Hampton Let This Black Revolutionary. Y'all got to talk about this automation. It's coming. I can see it. I can feel it. I've studied informatics. I can see this and smell it and taste it. You got to let everybody you talk to know who's heterodox. This is where the automation would come in. Pertinently. Like they showed it in 2021 with the robot dogs. They showed it with machines in these warehouses. This is where it's going to come in when everybody gets back to unions. And if we don't have something on paper legally, they're going to get us out of a job because they don't want to do it. And since they didn't force the minimum wage by law, once everybody gets hired, they can just cut everybody back down to $7.25. So it's the same
that's a
thing.
good point. That's a good
I got to
point.
stress that. We got to talk about this automate. This is the time. It's the last thing they have to stand against labor, because if you can control labor, you can stop policies, you can stop wars. This is why they did this. That's why they hate the truckers. That's why they want to automate the truckers. Yep. My dad was a trucker. He drove for Chrysler. They want to do this. This is a very practical way to really a very applicable way to actualize robots in the workplace, just with manufacturing and just sorting things. They will spend the money and get things wrong just to make sure that you have nothing. Just like with Jim Crow. They spent money on cotton, knowing they didn't mean anything, just to keep from Black folks from being able to farm and feed themselves and keep them in debt. That's why our farming is jacked up. And I thank the funky academic for teaching that lesson, because that is what it means for classes of racism and anything else. I'm better than you and I can rule over you. And I'm willing to spend the money to do it and lose.
Well, thanks for calling in so much, Frock. I have one more person left, and then I do have to get going.
I'm good.
But thank you so much.
Thank you for letting me in. Please let the next person on. He's good.
All righty. All right, Wilhelm, you're the last caller. You're on the mic.
Hey, Sabby.
Hello.
Hi. I think we need to have like a long view of what trends have been happening in history. Like if you listen to Matt Taibbi, he did an interview with Russell Brand where he talked about 40 years back, like the Democratic Party was getting beaten by the Republican Party, and then they pivoted. They said, we need to take more money. It's been happening for decades now, that they've been shifting to the right. Like both parties have been shifting to the right under our noses. And so we need to have people who are aware of this, constantly bringing this up, that we are all being indoctrinated into expecting less and less. Like if you listen to Obama saying, I would have been considered a moderate Republican. If you listen to Chuck Schumer saying, like, for every working class, like blue collar worker that we lose, we're going to pick up these moderate Republicans. Like they admit it. You just got to listen to them. Like we're getting pushed into these positions of precariousness, and bring up every time they say we don't have money for these programs. How come we always have money for war? Why do we always have money for defense contractors and Ukrainians? Like we need to feed people, house people. Like there's people that are homeless everywhere. Like this is just like a complete con job. And most of these representatives don't have the moral fortitude to stand up for these things, because of institutional capture, because that, there's that one Republican representative who revealed that he got invited to sex parties, cocaine, fueled by cocaine. I mean, there's all these kinds of mechanisms that keep on hooking people that go into Congress, and we don't know about that. So they create like this in-group, out-group dynamic, and you can hear it in the way that they speak to us. I'm pretty sensitive to just kind of like condescending language that's used. Like you feel like you're not being told everything that's going on. There isn't the transparency that you get from Shama Sawant. Like that's what made Shama Sawant, Trump, and all these people, that they come across as unvarnished. And that's what we need. Like we don't need these people giving us these like placating taps on the head. So we need to look for people like that are able to run outside of this duopoly that has like all these mechanisms to bring them into the fold, to pressure, to beat them with a stick, to fall in line. Yeah, like I'm just done with these two parties. Like I've been voting like third party since 2000. Like I've just Ralph Nader. I mean, you see how they demonized Ralph Nader, and it was based on so much propaganda. Like the people didn't owe their votes to Gore. Like like the people that voted for Ralph Nader wouldn't have gone and voted. Like they just create all these narratives that people who are so-called smart, like they fall for it. They fall for these things, and so that's why they play the long game. They tell us like, look what happened with this example of a third party person who ran, and then they feed you like all these narratives that kind of validate like the duopoly. And so like we just need to expose all this stuff. Like we need to keep all these things in our head, talk to people who are academics, who are activists, who know all these things, who have like a really long view of all these patterns that all these like trajectories that have happened, because they rely on us having like an attention span of like a couple of weeks, months, couple of years, but we need to have a long view that spans like decades.
Well said, Willem. Well said. Thank you so much. All right, guys.
Thanks,
Yeah, thank you so much for calling in. I hate to leave you guys, but I have to. It's past my time. I do want to say thank you so much to everyone who called in and for everyone who is listening. Yes, we definitely do have to make some changes. Guys, keep up the fight. I do want to let you know that there is something very important that is happening. Most of you know I did cover this story the other day about Chris Hedges. He was speaking out about the censorship that was happening to Alice Walker. So Alice Walker has been banned from the book festival. And I do want to show everyone here that I did receive this email yesterday. that it looks like Chris Hedges and Alice Walker are actually going to do a webinar. This is going to be May 3rd. So that's Tuesday from 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's going to be with Chris Hedges and Alice Walker. It says, stand with Alice Walker, say no to censorship. Anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. So definitely check this out if you can. If you're watching me on YouTube, you can actually see this right now, like on your screen. I'm going to go ahead and put the link to this in the chat. You can register to attend this webinar. So I definitely think you should check it out if you can. Looks like it's going to be quite a big deal. So definitely check that out. Again, it is the United National Anti-War Coalition. It is with Alice Walker and Chris Hedges, and that will be Tuesday, May 3rd, 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I think that is going to be an awesome event to attend if you can do so. So I do want to go ahead and give a shout out to Sean. Thanks for the super chat. Great job on Jimmy Dore's show the other day. Thanks so much, Sean. Thanks so much. I've gotten a lot of emails from people and compliments about that. It's good to know I'm doing a good job. Sometimes you never know. Just being honest with you. And then I have one more comment on Rockfin. I'll go ahead and take that as well. Eric, if that is ready. Or maybe it's not ready. Or it is. Okay. Thank you for this as well. Roger Meadows, thanks for the tip. No more parties for the simple fact they become the status quo, like what you described with school administrators serving to protect. It diverts donations away from politicians and put it towards ballot initiatives. New York State needs right of first refusal law to transfer ownership of company to workers. That will stop automation. Sab, you see my videos from Albany fighting for New York Health Act, housing in Qualified Immunity, Clean Slate Act. Thank you so much for that, Roger. Yes, I did see those. And thank you for this tip, Nicole. Voting for Shama before they district the Seattle City Council was the only vote I am still proud of. Well said. Well said. All right. I want to go ahead and end this on call-in. Thank you so much for listening, you guys. I'm going to go ahead and end this room. All right. And for those of you watching on YouTube, if you haven't had a chance to do so, give me a thumbs up. That really helps me with the algorithm. It is past my time, you guys. It is time for Sabby to go. I've done like 3 streams today. I have 2 streams tomorrow for the Anti-Imperialist Summit. So I'll be on with Nick and Jimmy at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. We're talking about how media pushes war. And I'll also be on at 1 o'clock with a commentator from Ethiopia. And we're going to talk about the U.S. Intervention in Ethiopia, which a lot of people are not talking about. So that should be a really good discussion. Other than that, guys, I got to head out. It's about that time. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.